The main character sat on the cold floor, looking at her fallen comrades, not believing that it was all over. She realized that among the fallen, one was the very first male hero, and a second lay nearby. The remaining lifeless bodies belonged to the sons of the Orca family, and the youngest, frozen with his eyes open, seemed unaware that he was dead. The girl breathed heavily, feeling her life slipping away, and she understood that in this reincarnation she again could not live to be 22 years old. This world existed inside a book written in the genre of raising children. Throughout her 3 reincarnations, at the ages of 20, 21, and 22, she invariably returned to the same story. But being born into a family of villains was not a crime. The young lady found herself in a cute parenting book, but her fate was far darker than all the other characters. Now, amid the silence and ashes, she noticed someone's shadow approaching her and slowly looked up. A huge dragon towered over her, and the girl froze. She had never seen a living one before. Then she realized, before her stood the Dragon Duke himself, the legendary ruler of these lands. And then she realized how bad everything was. If the reckless heroes had not angered the Dragon Duke, everything could have ended differently. She didn't understand why they had disturbed his peace at all, and what they were aiming for. Did they really want this ending? After all, a story about raising children shouldn't end with them falling into eternal sleep. The girl mentally called them fools. When she opened her eyes again, she realized in horror that Seoul was visible behind the dragon, and she could not understand why she was seeing this city. She thought that if she took a step forward now, then perhaps he will be able to return home to his real world. But at that moment, the guy in front of her raised his hand. His power flared up, and the young lady realized with a slight smile that she was already living her 3rd life in this book world. Watching the dragon prepare to plunge her into eternal sleep, she thought that in her next reincarnation she would definitely conquer him. A little while later, in one of the mansions, noble women were animatedly discussing the news. One of them asked if it was true that the girl was the current dragon's bride. Others whispered that she had not awakened her powers since birth, and if this was true, she would simply be sold. They assured her that at least this way she could be of use to the family. The main character, hearing all this, was angry because she understood every word perfectly, but soon she smiled, deciding that let them chatter. In this life, she would certainly become the dragon's bride. The world she lived in was called I Became the Terminally Ill Daughter of Duke Black Panther, and she was desperately trying to change the narrative in order to survive. But again and again she suffered defeat. Each time she was filled with self-loathing, yet it wasn't the end. Rebirths repeated themselves, and with them the curse of time. Having overcome the pain and failures of 2 past lives, she continued to move forward. In one of her previous attempts, she tried to seduce the main character. And in her 3rd, most decisive life, she fell into the trap of this same hero and died during a mass immersion into eternal sleep. But the power of the Dragon Duke, which she had glimpsed before closing her eyes, seemed priceless to her. If this power were hers, perhaps the girl would have a chance to return home. Now the young lady, together with her maid, heads to the room. When the baby is placed on the bed without much care, she almost screams in surprise. The girl rubs her bruised side and angrily thinks that she could have been more careful. At this moment, the maid locks the door, and the young lady again realizes that even children are not treated with leniency here. But she still understands that for this family, this is commonplace. After all, in their eyes, she is just a useless creature with no value. Although the girl convinces herself that this is only temporary, at that moment, the door opens, and someone asks if she's still there. It turns out to be the current head of the Orca family, Ogula Aquasiadel. And the young lady suddenly realizes that today is a special day. The maid immediately confirms the headman's words, nodding in agreement. The woman looks intently at the girl, as if assessing her, and Calypso suddenly remembers that today is the day she is supposed to be given a name. The woman wonders how things are with the power of water. The maid flips through several pages of the report to find the necessary entries. As she does this, the girl remembers that the power of water is a special ability passed down through the Orcas family. Thanks to this power, sea werewolves could use their abilities even on land. The more powerful the werewolf, the fewer restrictions the land imposed on him. The woman just clicks her tongue in irritation and says that the child in front of her is useless. Then she turns around, but the maid dares to ask what name to give the girl. The leader calmly says that her name will be Calypso Aquaciadel. The maid nods in agreement, and the girl wonders if this is really the end of it. But she understands that if she doesn't attract attention, she will be forgotten and disappear forever. So the young lady decides to take action and rises from her seat. She shouts out for them to wait for her. The chief and the maid turn around in amazement. Their faces express confusion as they ask what she just said. The girl shouts out one single word: grandmother. The head of the family immediately turns to the maid, demanding an explanation as to whether they knew the child could speak and who taught her. She replies that the child is only 2 years old, and it's perfectly normal for her to pronounce simple words. But the woman frowned and clarified that the children of the orca family usually begin to speak only at the age of 5. After that, she comes closer to the baby. The girl is happy, realizing that she has managed to attract attention. The leader asks her to repeat what she said, and Calypso says grandmother again, holding out her hands to her. The woman notices that the girl not only speaks but also perfectly understands the speech addressed to her. The maid apologizes, justifying herself by saying that she had never heard anything like this from either the nannies or the other maids. The main character understands about herself that this is her power of rebirth, although the old woman doesn't even suspect it. The woman chuckles and asks if a genius has suddenly appeared among the sea creatures. But Calypso suddenly cries out, "Grandma Fishhead." The woman only sighs heavily. Then he lifts the girl into his arms, and with a grin he remarks that the little girl is quite cunning. She says that the girl is remarkably similar to Pierre, and although she does not have strength, her mind is developing too quickly for such a child. Therefore, the head is interested in whether she can prove her usefulness. Calypso remembers how the woman left more than once, without even giving her a glance. And now the girl reaches for her grandmother's hair. A warm smile appears on her face. She suddenly pulls out a strand of hair. The woman is slightly surprised, and the maid almost screams in shock. The girl clutches the strand of hair in her hand and confidently thinks that she will definitely prove everything, then calls her grandmother again. In her mind, she adds that she will do this because she must return home. The maid watches what is happening, stunned, and the head of the house suddenly starts laughing loudly. After which, he says with a grin that he doesn't understand how such an unusual girl could be born from such a loser as Pierre. Calypso is then carefully placed back into the stroller, and the woman says that everything is fine. The young lady thinks that despite everything, she is still treated like a child. The woman adds that the punishment is postponed, and the girl should be sent to an educational institution in the summer. The maid nods, agreeing with her mistress's decision. As she leaves, the woman coldly says that if the little girl doesn't show results in her studies, she will be expelled without hesitation. The main character decides to herself that they will still watch this, because one day, having become the best, she will leave this house forever. The woman turns around and adds with cold confidence that there will be no second chance. Then the young lady realizes that her new goal is to live peacefully until she is at least 10 years old. Looking at her weak hands, she understands that the child's body is still too fragile, and if she is destined to go to an educational institution, it will be difficult without a guardian. The girl reflects that even outside the walls of the educational institution, she still cannot survive alone. At this moment, the maid puts the girl on the floor. Then he bows and says that in a week the baby will move to another place. The heroine notices that the maid's behavior has changed after recognizing her ability, and without showing emotion, tells her to go, to which the maid immediately agrees. The girl is left alone with her thoughts. She understands that among all these madmen, she needs to find an adult with such strength that everyone around her will be afraid of him, someone who can understand her untapped power of water. And it is desirable that this person does not participate in the struggle for power and has his own strange interests. The young lady recalls that when she was born, this man did not even come and take care of her older brothers. From this, she concludes that in this family one cannot become attached to anyone, and therefore he must not find out that she is his daughter. He may look weak, but his strength is great, and perhaps he can help if you draw his attention. At this time, the girl quietly opens the door of one of the rooms. She goes inside and realizes where she is. Her father is Pierre Aquasiadel. The girl remembers how the servants chatted about him in her past life, and now realizes that these conversations unexpectedly turned out to be useful. Now the young lady sees her father with her own eyes for the first time. Coming closer, she looks at him more closely, and he is finally convinced that it really is him, after which he freezes for a moment. Then he addresses him as if he were a stranger and greets him, after which she asks if he knows where the educational institution is located. The girl thinks that in her past lives she died too early and never saw her father, and now it is clear to her why the fate of beauties is always so cruel. The man looks at her silently, without saying a word. The girl is perplexed. Is he really just ignoring her? But soon he still says that she is going down the wrong path. The young lady replies that she must get there and asks if he could take her there. However, the man refuses, saying that she should return to where she came from. The girl understands that everything is not so simple and sits down on the edge of the fountain. Taking something out of her bag, she thinks about how to attract her father's attention, maybe treat him to something. Then she holds out her hand with the dried fruit, saying that she collected them herself, and offers one. But the man remains indifferent and does not respond. The girl eats the fruit herself, deciding that she didn't expect anything from it anyway. Then she quietly says that if he doesn't answer, it means he's as lonely as she is, but there's still no reaction. She's furious in her mind, wondering if he'll continue pretending she doesn't exist. Then she adds that he's probably just bored alone and asks if he has any friends. Receiving no answer, she realizes that today she's content with just the fact that he at least looked at her. Then she jumps off the fountain and gets ready to leave. As she says goodbye, she says that they will definitely see each other again, and he leaves without looking back. The man, looking at her, asks himself if this girl is really his daughter. But he soon realizes that she doesn't seem to even have a clue who he really is. The young lady understands that he will probably think exactly that way, because he couldn't help but recognize his own daughter. Late in the evening, the girl opens the door and freezes on the threshold. At this moment, she realizes that there is no obvious resemblance between them in appearance, especially along the collateral line of kinship. But if you look deeper, you will see that they are surprisingly similar in character, the same cold indifference and arrogance. The young lady recalls how the maid once said that she had no abilities, but required too much attention and was therefore completely useless. It would be better to get rid of her as soon as possible. Now she understands that people like her are left among the young orcas, and if she doesn't awaken the power, she can remain there forever, until she plunges into eternal sleep. The young lady realizes that she can only survive this madness with someone's help. That's why she urgently needs Pierre, the only one who can become her support. A smile appears on her face, because this is not even bad. She not only interested Pierre, but was also confident that she would be able to prove her genius. Meanwhile, the girl stands on the street and remembers that she went out early in the morning to meet Pierre. She wonders if it would be possible to strengthen this weak body at least a little. The young lady tries to concentrate and summon strength within herself, but the attempt ends in failure. She thinks that her older brothers were born with a gift and a strong body, and she cannot understand why nature has deprived her of it. In her past life, she possessed a rare artifact called rhinos, known as the Terror of the Water Dragon, and was able to awaken the power of water. But now she understands that she cannot search for ancient treasures. After all, the main thing now is to attract Pierre's attention. Suddenly, the young lady hears strange voices. Someone is asking if this is the right place and if they have made a mistake. She quickly hides around the corner and sees two guys, one of whom confidently says that it is right here. The young lady is puzzled as to who could have appeared in such a place. The guy says that somewhere nearby there lives a newborn from a straight line, and his friend replies that he understands, but wonders why she is needed if she does not have the power of water. At the same time, they mention that they are going to sell her to the dragon as a bride. Another guy adds that the girl is recognized as the head of the family and has moved into the main building, so if she is not put in her place, she might interfere with Mr. Bane. The main character realizes that Bine is the eldest son of her eldest uncle. So these two are relatives of a collateral branch who voluntarily became servants. One of them notes that when Master Bane is angry, he becomes truly frightening. The young lady understands that these types are subordinate to the future heir, and therefore despise all other direct descendants. The gray-haired boy says that the girl needs to be made to forget about everything else. The young lady realizes that she has no strength now, so all she can do is run. But as soon as she takes a step, a branch crunches under her foot. The boys instantly turn around, alerted by the sound. Noticing her, one of them exclaims that it is she. The young lady, with a slight smile, understands that the situation is hopeless, and then he immediately rushes away, running away from his pursuers. After a while, exhausted, the girl stops, feeling how fatigue consumes her body. The girl understood that she couldn't hold out for long. Her strength was almost leaving her. But suddenly she stumbled, fell, and at that very moment she realized that she had been caught. One of the guys mockingly asked if she really was a descendant of a noble family, since she looked too insecure. He then asked how she managed to earn the recognition of the head of the family if she was not even able to control the power of water. The little girl looked at them gloomily, without saying a word, after which she clenched her fist and coldly declared that she was speaking quite clearly. After all, they are the simple representatives of a side branch, subordinate to the immature Bina. One of the young men asked in surprise if the girl had really said it, and if he was the only one who had heard it. Then he added, how old must she be if she could speak so clearly? The second guy confirmed that he had heard it too, and turned to the little girl. He said mockingly that he had long wondered how she had managed to catch the eye of the head of the family without the power of water, but now he realized that she was simply a harmful insect, which could only show this paltry semblance of talent. But when he pointed his finger at the young lady, she suddenly grabbed his hand, and she bit sharply, causing the guy to cry out in pain. In shock, he waved his hand and shouted what madness was going on. Then the girl let him go, as if nothing had happened. The boy grabbed his finger, not believing that the child had actually bitten him, and the little girl asked if he had finished everything, after which she loudly remarked that an insect is, after all, an earthly creature, and the impudent fish-like creatures dare to compare it with the creatures of the land. One of the guys asked irritably what she was talking about, and the other one angrily replied that he was apparently trying to teach them a lesson. The main character realized that although she had managed to say at least something, she would no longer be able to run. She realized that she had no chance, because there were two people standing against her. Then the girl decided that she had to act and exclaimed, did they really think that her father would leave this unpunished? The boys looked at each other and asked if she was talking about her father. And then, to their horror, they realized that they were talking about Mr. Pierre. They immediately recoiled, clearly frightened. The girl realized that now, when there is a fierce struggle for inheritance between the grandchildren, the emergence of a direct heir, recognized by the head of the family himself, was far from happy news. But it was still too much. Two healthy guys against one little girl. One of them shouted at her not to lie, as Monsieur Pierre wouldn't spare her or care for her. The second confirmed it was true, as he was the one who defied the orders of the head of the family. Then the young lady asked what they were even talking about, since she was just going to meet her father, thinking that it wouldn't hurt to embellish a little. After this, the girl added that she wondered what her father would say when he saw how Bane's subordinates were treating her. One of the guys suggested leaving, sensing that things were taking a strange turn. But the other one broke free and screamed not to be held back. After all, before leaving, they should teach the girl a lesson in good manners, and make her pay for daring to bite his finger. The young lady closes her eyes and thinks that if she had the power of water, everything could have turned out differently. Then she would be able to give them a worthy rebuff. But suddenly the water force envelops that very guy. The girl's eyes widen and she's perplexed. Is this really a real water whirlwind in front of her? The guy's friend grabs him, shakes him, and asks him to come to his senses. Then he remembers in confusion that they said the girl does not have the power of water and does not understand what happened. Grabbing his friend, he angrily shouts that they will see each other again. As the boys walk away, The young lady, unable to restrain herself, gives them the middle finger. But, looking at her own hands, she is perplexed as to what just happened, and she quietly whispers that perhaps this is the awakening of the power of water, rejoicing that she seems to be a real genius. Then she notices that she is all dirty and thinks that she can't go to her father looking like this. She needs to tidy herself up and heal the wound. At this time, the man finishes using his abilities. He is surprised and wonders if the girl has figured out who he really is. And she, sighing, says that she misses the times when she was the coolest. The guy only becomes more and more confused. He can't understand what she meant by calling herself cool. After this incident, the young lady tried to use the power of water more than once, but without success. Another failure forces her to admit that awakening never happened. She is upset. After all, she was already happy. But suddenly, she hears a knock on the door and a question whether the lady is in the room. The girl turns around and allows them to enter. A red-haired girl enters the room, introduces herself as Misa, and says that she will be serving here from today. She says with a smile that she hopes to get along with the lady, and the main character wonders if the mistress really promoted her to a lady. Misa adds that a day has been set for the young lady to enter primary school. The girl looks at her intently, as if remembering where she had already seen this face. Her gaze falls on the scales on her neck, and she finally realizes where the familiarity comes from. After all, to fight foreign werewolves, two conditions are needed: a commander with the power of water, and a werewolf capable of finding a source of water. In squads without a water-based leader, such an ability is not essential. The girl only smiles softly in response, and the young lady realizes that her guess is correct. Misa really does possess this rare ability, although it seems she herself does not yet know it. The protagonist decides it's worth remembering Misa. Maybe she'll come in handy later. Meanwhile, the maid asks where the lady is headed. The girl replies that she is going for a walk, and she warns that there are a lot of destroyed buildings nearby, so it is dangerous to go out alone. Then he suggests going together. The young lady pauses for a moment, remembering how rudely the other maids treated her. Then he looks at the redhead and says that she seems kind. Misa blushes slightly in surprise. The girl thanks her, but still claims that it is better for her to be alone. After that, he goes for a walk. After some time, she approaches the fountain, and he waves affably to the man standing next to him. He asks with a grin if she is lost again, but the lady replies that she is not, and adds defiantly, "Does he really think she is stupid?" The girl thinks about how to start a conversation so that he doesn't ignore her. An idea comes to mind. She asks if he can control the power of water. He frowns and wonders what will happen if yes. The lady replies that she wants him to teach her because she thinks he'd be a good teacher. When the man asks why, the girl replies that it's just the way his face is. Then she asks again because she really wants to learn. She confidently declares that she is giving him a chance to raise a real genius. The man grins and asks who she takes after for being so cheeky. The girl proudly replies that she takes after her father. She tells him that her dad is handsome and strong, and generally the best man in the world. The man asks if he was like that before. The young lady nods and says that her dad loves her very much. He always takes care of her, worries about her wounds, and often cries if something happens to her, because he has a soft heart. The girl remembers how her father on Earth looked after her, how she and her mother surrounded her with warmth and love, which made her temporarily forget that she was an adopted daughter. The girl realizes that there is nothing more precious than family, because it cannot be replaced by any amount of wealth. And, at least for the sake of seeing her mom and dad again, she is obliged to return home. But the man suddenly asks why she doesn't follow her father's example. To this, the young lady replies that her father is always busy, and he doesn't seem to have any important matters to attend to, so she asks him to help her himself. Suddenly, the girl feels a heaviness, as if water is pressing on her from all sides. Turning around, she notices that her father did it, but the young lady is not afraid, and says that she plans to enter an educational institution soon. And to become the best there, she needs the power of water. The man warns that if you awaken the power thoughtlessly, you can fall asleep forever. However, the girl confidently insists that everything is under control. After all, life is one life, and it's not scary to die for the sake of a goal. But the man is perplexed by the connection between the school and the power of water. Then the young lady remarks that without this power, it is impossible to become the best. And the man thinks to himself that today's children are being raised to be reckless. She adds that her father dreams of seeing her as the perfect killer whale. The man smiles to himself, realizing that she is brazenly lying because he is her father. At this time, the girl asks the uncle to help her, but the man just watches silently. The young lady claims that she is smart enough, and if he helps her a little, she will succeed. However, soon she feels a stream of water lifting her up. The man wonders how the girl will behave if she is faced with a contradiction where the beginning does not match the end. He realizes that she will be easily exposed and asks if she thinks that a man who wants her power but does not support her truly loves her. The girl responds with a smile and says that her father, of course, loves her with all his heart. For her, he will always be the best, the strongest and kindest person in the world. The man says that now she can choose a convenient time for classes, and he also warns that he will not take her age into account, and asks to come every day at the same time. At first, the girl doesn't understand why he's saying this, but realizing that he agreed to teach her, she smiles broadly, after which she happily answers that she agrees, but asks how she should address him, uncle or teacher. The man says that she can call him whatever she wants. Then the girl decides that she will call him teacher. She feels that since Pierre has agreed to help, it is only a matter of time before the power awakens. Calypso realizes that she does not regret the meeting or her decision. The girl recalls that in one of her past lives, she had already awakened the power of water and received a great treasure for it. But awakening wasn't the end. She had to learn to control this power. Luckily, she then met a strange man who showed her how to do it. The girl then asked if the young lady knew of any similar methods so that she could try one of them. Now, the girl understands that by remaining under the influence of water for a long time, one can learn to control it independently. This is exactly what that man said, and perhaps that is why she was able to master this power, even though she thought she would fall into eternal sleep. Pierre says that they will start by getting used to the effects of water, to which the young lady asks in surprise what he means. The man calmly tells her to dive in. The girl doesn't understand, but he clarifies that she should dive. He explains that awakening often occurs in moments of danger, but the girl objects that she doesn't want to take risks. And then the man adds that there are other ways. The young lady then asks what kind of tests these are, and the man replies that they mostly involve intense torment, after which the girl falls silent for a moment. Then she says she'll just try diving into the water. Once she does this, she immediately realizes that the level of training is too difficult, especially for her age. She insists that the body must first be prepared so that it can withstand the force of the water. The man forces her to move more and more, not giving her a chance to rest. Then the young lady suddenly feels lightness throughout her body, and even decides to dive deeper into the water. However, he suddenly realizes that something is wrong. After this, it quickly jumps out of the water. Leaning against the edge of the fountain, she realizes that she really did almost drown. And he notices his father's stern look. He wonders if his daughter is just a weak-willed creature. The man adds that even the simplest organisms react to irritation, and her ability to harness the power of water is worse than that of an amoeba. The young lady objects that even if the teacher insults her with words, it does not mean that she is not hurt. She asks if he's taken her age into account, because deep down, she feels much older. The girl realizes that this is her fourth reincarnation, and she's already forgotten how children behave, while her father seems to have no understanding of them at all. The man asks what age has to do with it, since, according to him, anyone can handle such training. Then the young lady realizes that, despite his cold words, at some point she felt a strange movement inside her body. But she realizes that this is still not enough to compare with her older brothers, whom everyone calls geniuses. The girl, however, smiles, feeling that in this life the chance for success is literally right under her nose. After some time, someone informs the young lady that they have arrived. As she exits the carriage, she realizes that she will now officially become a student at the educational institution. In her second life, she was sold. In her third, she was expelled, and her entire fate is like a stormy sea of trials. At this moment, someone turns to her, saying that he has long heard about her successes. In front of her appears a woman with silver hair, who introduces herself as Layla, the person in charge of the elementary academy. The girl realizes that fate has brought her together again with the director of the establishment. The young lady recalls the reason she was expelled in her past life. She was then the victim of a trick by children from a collateral branch of the family. One boy accused her of stealing a precious stone, and a girl in their group confirmed it, claiming the stone had been found in Calypso's bag. The young lady then tried to defend herself, but no one listened. At that moment, a woman entered the room and demanded an end to the argument, offering to hear both sides. That was when the young lady met Lila for the first time. She stated that there was no evidence, and the accusations were based solely on conjecture, so Calypso couldn't be blamed. Then, the girl realized that this woman was calm and fair. However, even with her protection, the young lady was still expelled. Later, after returning to the academy as an adult and becoming the head of the family, she could no longer find any trace of this woman. Now the young lady simply lifts the hem of her dress and politely says that she is glad to meet Layla. The woman is slightly surprised and replies that she has heard a lot about her, but she's still amazed. Not only does the girl speak clearly at 3 years old, but she also behaves impeccably, like a true lady. Afterward, she promises to accompany Calypso to her class, and the girl agrees. As they walk down the corridor, Calypso suddenly notices something strange. The woman walks at the same pace, without overtaking, and the girl understands that she simply does not want her to fall behind. Meanwhile, the woman approached one of the doors and announced that this was where they were supposed to be, inviting them inside. The young lady realized at that moment that in her past life, she had never had the chance to thank her. Entering the room, which contained tiny children who could barely speak, the woman asked everyone to pay attention, after which she introduced them to Lady Calypso. From that day on, she explained, Calypso would study with them. A quiet murmur immediately broke out among the maids. One of them remarked that the newcomer was indeed beautiful and spoke as gracefully as rumor had it. Layla thought for a moment, realizing that the inability of a direct descendant of the Orcas to control the power of water was a serious drawback. At that moment, the girl turned to her sharply, but with interest. The woman noted that late speech development is common among members of the orca species, as most only begin to speak at 7 or 8 years of age. But Calypso was clearly an exception, and rumors of her extraordinary abilities appear to be true. However, if there is any intent or pretense behind this talent, Layla is determined to uncover it. She was about to act, but one of the maids came up and asked what they should do now. The woman replied that if things continued like this, the lesson would become impossible, as the lady was too smart for that level. Meanwhile, the girl was sitting among the little children, and when one boy offered her a cube, she calmly replied that she did not play such childish games. The boy burst into tears, and she, looking at him, noticed that outstanding orcas do not cry. Then another girl handed her a candy, and Calypso said that it was a plankton candy. Then she stroked the baby's head and added that she would accept her with gratitude. After this, Calypso turned to Layla and asked her opinion. She also asked whether more time was needed for verification, as it was a truly difficult process. Layla just sighed heavily and admitted that it looked like Calypso would have to move up a grade, and then asked which one she would choose. The young lady was inwardly glad. Everything was going according to plan. She had been waiting for this very moment. She realized that she had to be special to her grandmother, so the first thing she did was, she needs to prove that she is a real genius, because it meant a lot to her. And then, among other 8-year-old children, she will be assigned to the Alpha class, the best in the elementary school, where the most capable heirs of the family study. So now she asked if there were any children in their school who spoke better than her. And this question showed that Layla did not perceive her as an ordinary 3-year-old child. The woman smiled and said that the baby was simply amazing. But then she added that perhaps not. After all, the lady is superior to everyone. However, she warned that Calypso would have to take responsibility for her own decisions, asking if she agreed. Not since her third brother entered school had Layla experienced such confusion. At this time, several maids were peeping from behind the door, and Layla asked who told Calypso about the division of classes. The girl merely glanced at the watching maids. Then she calmly said that Papa had told her everything. One of the maids, surprised, asked another if it really was Monsieur Pierre himself. Calypso added with a smile that her dad loved her very much, which is why he shared everything. The woman remained silent in response to such expressions from this man. And then, a little confused, she said that she would first show her the class in which she wanted to study, and the girl agreed. Layla remembered the rumors that Pierre never visited his children, and everyone in the house knew it. But she admitted that perhaps the meetings took place secretly, and the relationship between them was excellent. Then the woman wondered, does Mr. Pierre really care about his daughter? After all, rumors often live faster than the truth, because such are the realities of this harsh world. She came to the conclusion that even if the girl could not yet control the power of water, with her father's support it was only a matter of time. And now Layla began to wonder, maybe Calypso was more than just a gifted heiress. She might be the new contender for the successor's title. Calypso's plan worked far better than expected. The girl happily noted that everything went perfectly, and her father asked what she meant. Calypso just smiled and replied that she was recognized for her outstanding abilities. The man said that he did not understand her joy, because if she could not control the power of water, she would fail. But the girl noticed with a slight smile that the teacher was spoiling the mood again, although she could understand him. After all, even at 3 years old, she knows how to get along with quiet ones like him. Then her father asked her if she wanted him to add 10 more circles today, and Calypso decided that this was how she would write her 33-line essay. The young lady told the teacher to look there, for where else had he seen such a resilient 3-year-old? She confidently added that she would soon be so strong she could split rocks. The man noticed that it was strange. The girl couldn't create water, but her body was getting stronger. He then told her to follow him, saying it with pride and prestige. After all, another training session awaited them. The young lady was a little surprised, but she obediently followed, and soon they headed towards one of the palaces. Looking around, the girl said that the teacher's house looked amazing. However, she understood that compared to Pierre's power, this house was insignificant, because her grandmother did not even notice his talent. They entered the room and the young lady addressed the teacher. I asked if they had the wrong door, because the place looked like a pigsty. Pierre felt uncomfortable at the animal comparison. The girl apologized, but immediately added that the place looked like a dump. The man sighed heavily and said it was his room, after which he ordered her to clean up using the power of water. Calypso asked again what exactly he needed to do, to which the man replied, "Just get out." The girl nodded, understanding. However, she clarified whether this is really what the training consists of. After all, the power of water manifests itself when you want to hit someone. Or perhaps the awakening training is related to patience, because endurance is also strength. The man replied that sometimes she spoke as if she was already familiar with this power, as if she had already used it. The girl was slightly surprised, but Pierre added that it was impossible. The girl, however, thought that the opposite was true, possible. After all, in her past life, she was the best among the underwater creatures, and yet, she clarified, that meant she really did need to get out. Pierre confirmed, saying it was spotless. The girl asked if that meant there were those who left things lying around and those who cleaned up after them. The man agreed. After these words, Calypso almost trembled with anger. She realized that her father had apparently forgotten that she was only 3 years old. She cried out that she didn't want to. After a while, she relented and asked if he really wanted her to use the power of water to clean. The man confirmed and explained that there were several ways to use this power. The first is to intimidate the enemy with the power of water, and this is really important. The second is the materialization of water and its use in battle or for benefit. The third is the removal of the limitations of strength that beastmen experience on land. The fourth is the use of water to strengthen the body. He added that Calypso was now only able to strengthen her body, and that there was little time left before she would fully awaken, so she needed to continue training. The girl wondered if he deliberately created such a mess to force her to practice. Then, with a smile, she wondered where else she could find a father like him. When she had collected a whole box of papers, she turned to Pierre. But, not hearing an answer, she noticed that he had the same expression on his face again. It was as if the person was detached from the whole world, but it was difficult for him to understand this. Calypso wondered if all sick people were like him. Then she noticed a handkerchief on the nightstand and asked where to put it. The man told me to throw it away. He said the thing was useless. But Calypso realized that if he was reacting that way, the handkerchief shouldn't be thrown away. Her memory from her past life told her so. The girl hid the handkerchief in her pocket and said she understood, promising to throw it away. Then she clarified that it wasn't his. The man replied that it wasn't, and he added that the handkerchief belonged to his wife. This surprised Calypso. He said it right away, without hesitation. She thought, after all having lived so many lives, all she knew about her mother was that she was a killer whale and a kind person. Calypso knew nothing else about her. At this point, the man asked if the young lady intended to spend the entire night there. The girl mentally noted how persistent and stubborn he was. Although she was reluctant to answer the questions, curiosity still got the better of her. Meanwhile, her father remarked that perhaps the training had become too easy for her. The young lady exclaimed that it wasn't so, and the man merely chuckled and suggested they hurry. Then she felt her strength truly increase, especially compared to when she was simply running. But as she continued to use the energy, she began to succumb more and more to its influence. The man, watching the girl rush around cursing him, only smiled quietly. The next morning, Calypso woke up with a severe ache all over. The maid asked her if she intended to continue living there as planned, and the girl nodded affirmatively. She knew that if she returned home, it would be difficult to see Pierre. He said that next time she would do the laundry, and the young lady thought wistfully that such training would one day drive her crazy. At that moment, Lady Layla approached her and announced that she would take her to class. Calypso noticed that the woman spoke to her much more gently today than she had yesterday. Layla said the girl had become a celebrity in just one day, and the young lady asked in surprise if that was true. The woman replied that rumors about her had already reached 16 of the Orcas, related families. Calypso couldn't believe everyone had found out so quickly. Lila, however, noticed that it seemed like every teacher present yesterday had their own version of events. The young lady asked if they were really that talkative, and Lila added with a chuckle that one of them claimed his father was a flying fish. Calypso recalled that this species of fish was particularly talkative, so nothing was surprising. The woman, however, said that rumors about Lady Calypso had spread so quickly it seemed like a real scandal. The young lady remarked that she seemed to look too ordinary, and Layla replied that perhaps many people would be more interested if the story were more piquant. Calypso remembered that her grandmother occupied a central place in the Orca family hierarchy, around which 32 related families were concentrated. If you factor in other sea creatures, their numbers become enormous, so Calypso's story could indeed be a cause for concern. These families chose and supported their own heirs. After this, Calypso and Layla approached the stairs and began to climb. Layla noticed that Lady was showing excellent physical fitness. At 3 years old, she could easily climb stairs and speak a new language fluently. The girl agreed. She thought that this was enough to compare her with Binet, Solte, and of course Bellis, the sons of her first and second uncles, as well as her older brother, who was called the genius of the century. So the little girl asked Lila what she thought about all this. The woman admitted that every action Calypso took inspired genuine admiration. The girl replied that it was too early to be surprised, because this was only the beginning. After this, Layla approached the door and said that the school's alpha class was in front of them, inviting the girl to enter. Calypso noticed that, in just one day, she was already being talked about as a genius, and she asked doubtfully if she looked worthy of the top class. The woman smiled and said she couldn't deny it, but Calypso had already taken off and run ahead. Lila quietly added that a storm was coming, as animals often inherited the character of their parents. The young lady only asked that I tell her grandmother that she had met a truly brilliant child. The girl mused that since children adopt their parents' traits, whale-like creatures by nature avoid conflict. They prefer calm, harmony, and gentleness in communication, and therefore are more tolerant of other races. But even among such peaceful creatures, there were exceptions: the killer whales. After a while, someone announced that classes were over for the day. The students were asked to build figures out of blocks, but one boy, unable to hold back his tears, complained that Karan had hit him. The teacher turned to Karan and demanded that he stop disturbing the others and get down to business. The boy, putting his hands behind his head, casually replied that he understood, and the young lady guessed that he was Orca. He exhaled heavily and noted with displeasure that the girl was again making up some childish games. The other boys joined him. The Beluga twins looked at him with resentment, but Karan merely snorted, saying it was too early for them to compare to his level. Then he frowned and asked what exactly they were looking at. One of the twins noticed that Karan was being provocative again, and he frowned, asking threateningly if there was something they didn't like. At that moment, the teacher asked everyone to pay attention and announced that there was a new student in their class named Calypso. She invited the students to applaud her. Looking at the new girl, Karan immediately noticed her hair, the kind that only the family's direct heirs had. If she was a girl, then she was Monsieur Pierre's daughter. He remembered the maids whispering that Pierre's daughter was considered useless and that they were planning to marry her off to a dragon. No one understood how he could have such a weak heir. The teacher gently addressed Calypso, offering to introduce herself to her new classmates. At this time, Karan was wondering why this worthless girl had come here at all, and he had already decided that she would inevitably cry anyway. The girl introduced herself with restraint, mentally noting that the school created by the orcas taught first and foremost survival. She firmly decided that this was where she would become the best. Afterwards, she loudly announced her name as Calypso Aquasiadel and expressed her hope that this class wouldn't disappoint her. The teacher asked if everyone had heard and again asked them to greet Lady Calypso. Then she reminded them it was time to start playing with the blocks and invited them to take their seats. As the girl sat down, Karan snorted, noticing that her hair was indeed the color of a direct descendant. The heroine immediately realized who it was. The guy mockingly added that the little girl didn't even know how to play properly yet. The girl mentally noted that this arrogant guy was always meddling. She stood up and coldly ordered him to be quiet and not distract the others. He frowned, as if to ask what she was talking about, but the girl responded by asking who he was and how old he was. Karan replied that he was 8. The girl pointed at him and remarked that at his height, he should be in middle school by now, not sitting among the little kids. She said that if he was so big and still here, he must be a loser. She added that she herself was only 3 years old, and asked if he was ashamed to study next to such little children. The boy cried out indignantly and declared that they would only be able to talk when she turned 5. But Calypso could not restrain herself and asked how he dared compare himself to her. The guy clenched his fist, exclaiming what a cheeky girl she was. But when he rushed to attack, Calypso deftly dodged and his blow landed straight on the floor. The young lady remarks that the guy would do well to learn some good manners first. The boy trembles with fear and exclaims that she almost sent him into eternal sleep. But the heroine merely asks what he's even talking about, and advises him to consider the difference in their powers. After this, the girl resolutely grabs him by the collar, and without hesitation, she hits him with her head. Then she picks up a stone from the floor and calmly says that she didn't mean to resort to violence. But she has no intention of forgiving offensive words, and she squeezes the stone so hard that it cracks. The guy retreats in horror, and the young lady adds that it is her father. Learn to always avoid the blows of fools. Camilla, the alpha class teacher, and Lila look shocked at this. The teacher points out that the girl hasn't even awakened the power of water. And yet, she's already received such impressive support. The woman wonders if it's even possible. And Layla thinks that Karan, while physically superior to the girl, is clearly inferior to her mentally. But the young lady managed to defeat him so easily, and now rumors about this will certainly spread among noble families. The main character, enjoying the attention, realizes that everything is going according to plan. After all, she is now in the Alpha class and has attracted all eyes on her. The teacher asks everyone to take their seats, reminding them that to become the best, they need to study hard. The children eagerly agree. When the lesson ends, the heroine goes out into the corridor, and two boys immediately run up to her. They want to get acquainted, and the young lady straightens up and with a slight smile understands that the day was not wasted. The boys ask her to save their class, because Karan often bullied them, and they want her to defeat him. The heroine recalls Layla's words that there is no point in changing classes, and thinks that the girl is probably right. She won't stay in elementary school for long. The young lady grins as she looks at the boys, noticing that they are beluga beastmen. They were all smart, fair, and friendly, almost like dolphins. One introduces himself as Ruba, the other as Ruga, and together they proudly call themselves Rugaruba. The heroine wonders how Karan could beat them, given that their heads are soft as fluff. She agrees with their words and asks if their name is really Duba, but both of them confidently repeat that they are Rugaruba. The young lady nods approvingly and asks them to take care of her, since they were the first ones who wanted to be friends. She remembers a man who once asked her not to say such things to him, because he only did what he wanted, considering himself smart and independent. The girl remembers that in her past life, the strategist was arrested, but his intelligence was enviable. One of the boys exclaims that they should be grateful to their lady. He says his mother taught him to treat his first friend with kindness, and his father said the same. The young woman merely notes that their parents probably had something slightly different in mind. One of the boys asks her with concern if it's hard for her to climb the stairs, and the girl replies that she feels fine. But suddenly she feels that her feet no longer touch the floor. The boys scoop her up, saying they're helping their comrades because she's their friend now. Together, they carefully descend the stairs. The maid, seeing this, is surprised, but the young lady calmly accepts what is happening. As she heads towards the carriage, the boys wave at her, and the girl realizes that it looks like she has some cute subordinates. However, upon returning to the house where she now lives, she notices that all the servants have gathered, even those she had not seen before. One of the men greets the lady, saying it's an honor to meet her. The girl, confused, asks what's going on. The butler explains that Lady Calypso is staying here at her request, and orders have come from the main palace to make her stay as comfortable as possible. The young lady understands why everyone's expressions are so tense, but she decides it's even for the best. Now she can gradually strengthen her influence. She claims to be happy with everything and wants to choose her own nanny. Then he points to Misa, adding that it was she who showed her kindness, so the choice was obvious. The heroine emphasizes that Misa was especially careful about her diet. The man asks if she understood her correctly. The young lady answers affirmatively, adding that, although they may not know it in the main palace, food is often neglected there. The man explains that all this is done to ensure the survival of only the strongest. The young lady calmly remarks that this is an ancient rite of the Orca family, which she has known about since childhood. But the girl is genuinely surprised that all their relatives consider it normal to take boiling water instead of baths, or to tolerate rudeness and cruelty towards children. The lady insists that she considers it simply a test that everyone must endure. The man is stunned and does not immediately understand whether she wants to say that something like this actually happened here. Then the girl calmly replies that this is precisely why she is going to tell her father everything. The butler is astonished and asks if she intends to reveal everything to Monsieur Pierre. But the young lady, with a slight smile, replies that her father is simply interested in her life. After this, the girl takes Misa by the hem of her dress and softly says that now that everything is over, she must take care of her. The man turns to Lady Calypso and asks permission to investigate the rumors spreading among the locals, because he understands that if he doesn't intervene now, the problems will only get worse. The girl insists she's fine, but silently adds that other children could have been harmed. Deep down, she vows to make those responsible pay, and then decides to discuss it with her father. After that, she looks up at Misa. She leans towards the lady and promises to do everything possible. A little time passes, and the maid is already hanging out the laundry, remembering the girl's conversation. She can't get the young lady's words out of her head about the abuse and stress placed on children, insisting that such suffering was not a normal ordeal. At this time, the lady sits with a book, and her thoughts are carried away into the past. She remembers how the Baluk family was destroyed. The maid thinks that people were wrong to doubt this girl before, because she really is unusually smart. The main character reflects that belugas and dolphins are surprisingly intelligent beastmen, but in her third life she never managed to do anything before they were exterminated. Her uncle's son, Bine, had done all this simply because the belugs irritated him. Now she understands there's no point in pursuing talent for the sake of war. After all, she'll have to leave here soon anyway. If she wants to impress her grandmother and then disappear, she needs to improve. Suddenly, several maids approach the young lady and startle her by asking if she is studying. One remarks that the rumors were true. The girl really is smart, while the other admires how touchingly she holds the book in her tiny hands. The heroine turns to them, and the maids admire how soft and sweet the little girl's speech is. After a while, the lady curiously asks if they are sisters. The girls laugh and reply that they are simply childhood friends. Then they introduce themselves. The dark-haired one says that her name is Iya, the red-haired one says that her name is Via, and the fair-haired one adds with a smile that her name is Tete. The heroine realizes how needlessly she worried, expecting a cold attitude from the maids at the main palace. The girls, however, note that Lady Calypso is not only intelligent, but also surprisingly kind. Even Messrs. Bellis and Atlan couldn't compare to her. The girl nods and says that's enough, then decides to introduce them to someone. She points to Misa and says she's her nanny, hoping they'll become friends. The three girls are surprised, come closer, and politely introduce themselves, expressing their pleasure at meeting her. They add that if Misa is the nanny, they can speak to her without unnecessary formalities. At that moment, the young lady decides to leave them and go to her father herself. She understands that if she stays, she will not get rid of their endless chatter. However, she is pleased to feel that this place now feels like a real home, filled with life. Several days pass, and the girl notices that her life has become surprisingly calm, incomparable with her past existences. Everything seems almost perfect, except for one thing. Looking at the pile of clothes in the fountain, the young lady turns to the teacher and asks if this is really a training session. A man watches her from the window of the mansion. Then he sternly asks if she didn't understand the first time. After which, using his powers, he hands her a bar of soap and tells her to begin. The main character looks at her father in shock, not understanding what is happening and what kind of madness he has created. After all, every activity she does becomes stranger and stranger, and now, looking at the pile of clothes, she wonders who ever came up with the idea that Pierre adores cleanliness. These dirty rags screamed the opposite, and the girl was amazed. Could he really have been collecting them all year just for this moment? She asks the teacher how she'll wash all this, but he asks if she still can't summon water. The young lady objects, reminding him that she's already managed to wash an 8-year-old child, and asks if that's not enough. But her father coldly remarks that if she can't do it, then she's not the heir apparent. Then the girl says with resentment that this is precisely why she is not interested in talking to geniuses like him. Despite everything, she's treated with respect in her class. The boy wonders if this is really true. Since the orcas, children haven't exactly been doing well lately. The girl remembers her brothers and finally understands why they called their father a strange man, but she is still sure that she is the best of them. She admits that her father never did any sloppy work, which means that if he criticizes, it's for a reason. The young lady complains that she cannot wet her clothes properly and asks for advice, but the teacher only asks if she is going to use force. The girl tries and unexpectedly succeeds. She happily turns to the teacher and says that he can see for himself that she did it. The girl realizes that if she concentrates her weight in one point, her small body is quite capable of withstanding anything. After this, she confidently declares that everything happened exactly as the teacher predicted. And he really turned out to be right. The best of the best. When it got dark outside, the young lady finished washing and thought that Pierre probably knew that she was his daughter. She smiled widely, realizing that she had been trying to prove this her whole life. The man always attracted attention, although he himself was not interested in anything in particular. One day, the girl's mother offered Mr. Kasatka a bet. Now the girl is wringing out her clothes and notices the teacher approaching. She calmly says that she's not finished yet and asks why he even came down. There's only so much left. The man recalls the woman's words about how one day he'll be surprised to see someone like him. Meanwhile, the girl assesses her work and, weighing the clothes, admires herself. She really did a great job. But her father simply says there was nothing difficult about it. Then the little girl, laughing, remarks that even without knowing whose daughter she is, she managed to be so talented. It occurs to her that she might accidentally call him Dad. So, smiling, she still decides to say, "Of course, she is Daddy's girl." The man is surprised, but then falls silent and after a while asks if it is right to talk like that about someone who has never come to visit her. The girl is angry. It means he understands that it was wrong. The man admits that the longer he watches her, the more convinced he becomes that she is not stupid at all. The young lady happily replies that it's thanks to his teaching, but he coolly remarks that he's not used to chatting about his father. She calmly replies that she follows everything he taught her. But then the girl notices that his gaze becomes empty again, as if he is tired of everything, and then, gathering her courage, asks why he lives all alone. He also doesn't like being around too many people. He remembers hearing that he was just a vessel, incapable of holding such power. Now Pierre calmly says that it really is easier without annoying people. And the young lady then asks if that's why he always looks as if he doesn't care about anything, and as if he could disappear at any moment. The boy again remembers how the servants whispered at his bedside, and one of the maids assured him that it was a waste of money when such a powerful force of water went to Monsieur Pierre. After all, his body is weak. And now the man easily admits that this is true. The young lady, hearing this, only slowly reaches out her hand towards him, and then suddenly he hits his father on the leg. The boy looks up in surprise, and the girl exclaims how he can say such things with such coldness. Calypso realizes that many people have a much harder time than him, and so the girl sharply remarks that he should not throw such words around near the 3-year-old genius, because he must be completely crazy. She clearly understands that he's simply wasting his life while she works tirelessly. So the girl says this can't go on any longer, and the teacher is simply wasting his days. Calypso adds that he should learn to see at least something good in her. Then the boy asks what she's talking about, and the young lady reminds him that he's the one training her. After which, she invites him to become her business partner. The man is surprised, as he didn't expect the girl to already know such words. But the young lady just smiles and tells him to just trust her. She will show him how wonderful life can be. After these words, the man involuntarily looks at the baby and remembers how someone once said that he was not sure whether it was true or just rumors. But lately, his daughter has been telling everyone that her father loves her immensely. The man wonders what she gains from spreading such rumors. Meanwhile, the girl asks the teacher what he is doing there and tells him to hurry up, because he is too slow. The man thinks that this child is simply amazing. After all, she has never made a mistake when addressing him. After a little while, the young lady is already building a tower of blocks, and someone asks if she is finished. The two boys say they've already completed the task and ask permission to play hide and seek, inviting the lady along. But the main character declines, declaring she doesn't waste time on childish games. One boy admiringly says she's as cool as their dad, and the other adds that he wants to learn to talk like that. The girl replies that they'll get there when they're older, but advises them to take their time. Then one of them says that their mother would like to meet the lady to thank her. The second one adds that Karan used to hit them a lot, but has softened up now, all thanks to her. The girl calls him a scoundrel, and asks if she should hit him again, to which the boys, surprised, ask if she can. Then they exclaim that they will be grateful to the lady for the rest of their lives. Calypso, with a gentle smile, thinks how devoted they are. Too much so, even. The girl says that she doesn't need thanks, just one question. After this, the young lady asks if they have ever cooked fish, realizing that fish and sea creatures are not the same thing. The boys begin to talk enthusiastically about cooking fish, but soon look at each other. Then they say they've already tried it, because their father is an excellent cook. The girl asks if this is true, and then he suggests asking their father about it. After some time, the young lady is already sitting on the street, and the maid is feeding her, carefully wiping the baby's hands. Well, when the young lady takes food into her mouth, the maids immediately admire it, and the main character understands that they brought her lunch. Iya then asks how Lady Calypso can have such a white and sweet face, and the other girl agrees, after which she claims that she has never met such a gentle child as her. The young lady then understands what the herrings and friendly people are saying, but she understands that there is no need to go that far. However, the girl also understands that food is important for growth, and that it is all she needs now. This is growth and a dragon. The blonde then claims that, if you think about it, the Dragon Festival will take place this year, and then asks if that's true. And the main character then thinks that the Dragon Festival is a grand festival organized by the imperial family, and it takes place in the City of Dragons. To be more precise, this is a holiday that reveals the authority of the imperial family, and also a demonstration of the fact that the Dragon Duke's power is under the watchful eye of the imperial family. At this time, Iya asks if this time too only land animals and animal people will be invited. And Via then says that it's such a pity, because she really wanted to see it at least once. The lady with gray hair then replies that, however, underwater inhabitants are not invited. And the main character understands that this is true, and she would also like to see the Dragon Duke at least once. But at this time, the red-haired maid asks if they have heard that the leader will return soon. The young lady then asks what "will return" means, but the maid is only touched by the way she speaks, then asks if the lady just winked. The girl replies that she doesn't think so, and the maid asks if the mistress can wink again. The young lady then closes one eye, and the maids scream because it's so cute. The lady with the blonde hair now claims that, although the head was absent, upon his arrival they will hold family meetings, and the young lady then claims that she looks at Tete and knows the latest gossip of nature well, and the girl then replies that their herring sisters are everywhere. The protagonist then begins to reflect on the family meeting, and wonders if there's a way to add her name to the family council. She also realizes that she won't be able to suddenly awaken the power of water now, and thinks it would be better to introduce herself. But her brothers immediately come to mind. The young lady recalls one of the boys telling the other that he had defeated him and that he would follow him as the head of the family. Another one asked if he'd really won, then told his brother to just step on him. And the third one merely repeated the word, step. And now the main character is wondering which of the three crazy brothers she should meet. But at this point, the maid turns to Mistress Calypso and asks her to say, However, this only frightens the girl, who then claims she doesn't eat carrots. The maid then apologizes and claims it's probably because she cooked it poorly, and the young lady then replies that it wasn't. However, the woman then only apologizes again and insists that people like her shouldn't cook. The main character then says no, after which she hands over a carrot card and claims that only this time will she eat it, after which the maids only clap. Much time later, they are already heading back to their estate, after which they say that they will see the lady tomorrow at lunch and also claim that they will bring something else tasty. The main character then waves them goodbye, but she can't get the family meeting out of her head and thinks about what her brothers are up to. But she needs to find out. The girl then makes her way through the bushes and realizes that if she goes this way, she will end up in the high school building. The young lady understands that, first of all three of them should be in high school now, and it would be bad if she was caught, so she needs to be careful. But at this time, the young lady suddenly hears someone screaming, wondering if this person can hear. Then she turns around and sees three guys standing there. One of them then asks if the guy is deaf and is ignoring their words or just not getting it. And the main character, looking at the boy, understands that this is Agenor and he is Calypso's third brother. However, the girl, watching from the bushes in shock, wonders why they are making fun of him. But then she sees the guy shaking, almost crying. And one of the boys then asks if he doesn't know that people who come there are supposed to be greeted. But judging by the color of his hair, he's from a collateral branch of the family, so the other boy asks how someone like that could have ended up in their class. The young man then tells them to stop. But the boys just keep making fun of him. And one of them asks if his friend heard the guy's voice. He thought it was a goat, a beast that only bleated. The main character then realizes that she remembered from a past life what Agenor was like during his school years. One of the servants, when asked about Master Agenor's school days, looked a little puzzled, and from his words the girl realized that this guy was a jerk who enjoyed being bullied. He was deliberately feigning weakness to provoke bullying, and now one of the bullies picks the guy up and asks why he's gone silent. And the main character realizes that the guy is said to have put half of the people who started the fights into eternal sleep. But, in any case, if he uses his water power now, they will all fall into eternal sleep, and the girl understands that it is impossible for the topic of how her brother beat up his classmates to be raised at a family meeting where she has not yet been introduced. That's why the girl now runs out of the bushes and thinks that things will be bad. At this point, the guy is about to hit the young lady's brother and screams out whether he is ignoring him and whether he is going to respond. But when the bully is about to hit him, someone screams for them to stop. And when they turn around, they see a young lady. One of the guys then asks the little girl why she's bothering them. But then one of them tells his friend to look at her hair, and the guy asks what hair he is talking about. But when he looks at her, he wonders if this is really a direct descendant. Calypso already understands that these traits are inherited only by close relatives, and the guy then asks if this isn't the one rumored about lately, and she's Pierre's daughter. The other guy then insists that's it. As for the immediate family, it's a complete headache, so they should get out of there. After which the bully throws the guy, and when he leaves, he screams so that he considers himself lucky. The main character just sticks her tongue out at them as they leave, thinking it doesn't sound very scary. At this time, the boy asks why she intervened, and when the young lady turns around, she sees that he is already changing the color of his hair. The guy then asks again why she intervened. The main character then recalls her past life and what her third brother was like back then. The guy then turned to Calypso and claimed that if they had met when they were younger, he would have been embarrassed because he did a lot of immature things and there was a lot of injustice at that time. Therefore, he claimed that he even regretted it a little and would have liked to have met her earlier. However, now the young man only looks at her angrily and, in the main gang, does not ask why he is there. She then addresses him as Agenor Aquasayadel and says that he is, after all, her brother. After this, the guy only asks what she means, and the young lady then does not understand what the hell is going on. After all, not after such a sweet face and the question of whether he is her brother. He should have at least shown a little emotion. However, the young man then asks why, and the main character claims that she recently saved him, after which the young man is simply surprised and asks what she's talking about. The young lady just points her finger at him and claims that she knows that he was going to put these kids into eternal sleep, but the guy then tells her not to interfere in his affairs anymore and to get out of there. And the girl asks if he won't even greet her, and despite the degree of kinship, they will happily kick him out of the family. Well, the guy then asks if he can't do it quietly, because no one would know. But at that very moment, the little girl jumps into the air, which even makes the guy's hair stand on end. The young man then thinks that she is quite fast, but when he looks in front of him, he sees that his sister is already hitting him with her fist, which only makes him open his eyes wide. Well, after this, the main character just gives him a slap on the back of the head, and the guy just grabs his head. The main character, with a smile on her face, understands that this is the best method for quickly coming to her senses, and this is all thanks to her father's instructions. The guy at this time just rubs his head and asks where she got such a sit, and the young lady then comes to him and thinks that she is a super munch king-gresser. After which, the young lady only approaches him and claims that she is just a cute younger sister who is much stronger than her older brother. Well, after this, the guy just blushes and tells her not to make him laugh, and also states how much she irritates him. However, when the boy wants to use his water power, the little girl just pulls him towards her and then asks, "Has your brother ever washed his clothes?" And then she lays him down on his back, causing the boy to yelp. The girl then insists that when it comes to laundry, the more you wash, the easier it gets. The young man then tries to get up and say something to her, but the main character only asks if he's going to continue. The guy then wants to answer, "Of course," but then gets hit on the head again. He cries out in pain. The young lady then tells him to know, Meru, that even if he uses the power of water, he won't be able to defeat her. And no matter how many times he attacks, the result will be the same. Then the main character asks if he will admit defeat. However, after this, the guy only clenches his fists and screams how old she is and why she is so strong. She must have taken some kind of pill. Calypso then wonders if he hasn't even heard rumors about her, but then claims that the guy is simply weak. The girl also hopes that in this life her brothers will become stronger. After all, you need someone who won't let you go crazy. The girl understands that the Dragon Duke must become stronger to defeat the main character, and Anna will personally take care of their training. Then she looks at her brother and thinks that all she has to do is look into those eyes. It's a face that screams readiness to attack at any moment, and to rein in the proud Agenor. The girl thinks that this method will work best, after which she remembers her father and then tells the guy to try calling her little sister, but he says that he doesn't want to. And the main character approaches him and then asks if he wants to become strong, and the girl also says that she herself is strong. After which she asks if he is surprised, and also states that if he wants, she can tell him. After this, the guy just lies down on the floor and asks his little sister how he can become stronger. The young lady then simply smiles, then rises and thinks that this is a wonderful speech. The blood of the orcas runs hot in them, so she thinks how she can resist telling him about this method. The girl then replies that fine, and she will tell him, but he needs to listen carefully, and he will have to do everything she says. The guy then cries out that he doesn't want to, and the young lady then asks if he is serious, because if so, she will go to Atlanta and propose to him. The guy only laughs after this and then screams that no matter what she does, he will do it and can do it. And the girl then extends her hand and states that they will do as she said, to which the guy agrees and then shakes her hand in return. And the main character then realizes that when it turned out that Agenor behaved like a jerk during his school years, something else was revealed. The young lady then recalls how one of the servants claimed that the boy's classmates first insulted his mother, and the boy said that he felt unpleasant and that no one heard him. And after that, an accident happened, so now the young lady tells him to listen carefully, because from now on it is forbidden to beat and put into eternal sleep, and also assault and destruction of evidence are also prohibited. And even though the guy isn't even thinking about burying anyone, the young man only looks a little puzzled, and the main character then raises a finger and declares that this will continue until he defeats her. And as soon as the guy defeats her, he will be able to do whatever he wants. After which the young lady asks if this suits him. Then they pinky swear, and the guy then says that's great. A little while later, the main character approaches her father and asks if he needs a second student. The man then looks at them with only a slight puzzlement, and the main character then says that he is her brother. The girl also understands that no matter how much she looks, it's clear that this guy is Pierre's son. However, the man then asks what's wrong with that. And she is doing something useless, although there is no need to do it at all. So he claims that since she brought him, she should send him away. The main character then turns to the teacher and claims that she defeated him today. The man then asks if she won, and the young lady replies that she did, and that she tried her best not to get hit. After which she claims that this is why she took him on as a subordinate, but she has no need for him. The girl asks if they can't be there together. After all, he's just as lonely as she is. Pierre only sighs after this and rises from his seat. And he claims that she can't be stopped, so let the girl do whatever she wants, but that the main point of the game isn't revealed. Meanwhile, her dad leaves, and they think he's still confused. After all, there is a third son there who has begun to obey and follow the little girl. And the daughter pretends that she doesn't know anything, although in fact she is aware of everything, so the man doesn't understand what she's thinking about. A little while later, the main character is at an educational institution, and two guys then claim that they prepared lunch to eat with the lady, after which they offer to eat, and the main character does not agree, and also realizes that they are, as always, full of energy. After which one of the servants points to the picnic and the boys just admire it, and the main character wonders if 3 children can eat all of this. At this time, the guys turn to the lady, and one of them then takes a plate with treats, and also states that they would like to invite her to their home, and they will cook a lot of delicious things. The little girl then takes a plate of food, and the boys then talk among themselves, and one of them suggests telling Dad to cook it, and the other agrees, after which they begin to eat. And then one of the boys hands the young lady a letter and claims that this is what she asked for last time. And after all, the brother himself asked his dad. The main character then looks at him and thanks him, and the boy then turns around and says, "It's Daddy who's come." The boy then heads to his dad and says goodbye to the lady, telling her to take care of herself. The main character then looks at this man and realizes that he looks exactly like their twin. He is also a white-eared whale beast man from the beluga family. The girl realizes that in her past life, she was not connected to this family because it disappeared before she became the head of the family. And originally, the position of Orca matriarch was a tradition passed down through the maternal line. However, Ogula was unable to give birth to a daughter, and this news became a wonderful opportunity for the grandchildren, who until now had not had the slightest chance. One of the most likely candidates for the post of head in this situation was her uncle's first son, Bine. The head of the family claimed she would choose the next head from among her grandchildren, and if he was truly outstanding, it wouldn't matter internally. The boy, though strong, was quite cruel, and many innocent servants, including members of the Baluk family, were sacrificed. And the girl now understands that she has begun to gradually remember what kind of disaster this being brought to the Beluga family. At that moment, someone passes by the young lady and brushes against her. It turns out to be the same bully from the class, and he just smirks and asks what it is and tells the little girl to watch where she's going. The girl then claims that if he was going to make a fuss, then there was no point in doing so. She didn't see any need. After which, she asks the guy if he thinks that she will get angry and attack him like he does, and the young man becomes a little embarrassed after that and then asks what she is talking about. And then he just gets angry and claims that soon she will stop looking down on others and asks if she understands, but the young lady asks what he is talking about, because she always talks like that. After this, the guy just screams at her to keep bragging, because he can't wait for her to be kicked out. The girl then wonders what kind of nonsense this is, and is there really a reason for her to be kicked out? Even I'm interested in her. The guy then just cries out, does she think she can defeat Bine himself? She'll regret even touching him. The girl then realizes that if she thinks about it, there were guys who really said that they were Bine's subordinates. After which she turns to the bully and says, okay, and let him go and tell him quickly, because she's also curious why she's being kicked out. The guy then simply clenches his fists and asks if she thinks he's joking, since he's actually telling the truth. Well, the young lady then asks who says that he is joking, and she is so scared, so she will wait and let the guy run faster and tell Bine about everything. The guy just gets really angry after this, and then looks at the stand where there are 2 swords, and then grabs one of them. He also pounces on the main character and screams that he won't leave her alone. The girl then merely dodges and realizes she doesn't want to fight with all her might, but if he hits her, she'll be hurt, and she doesn't want that. So the young lady jumps up and understands that even more so. Dad told her not to touch her, and after that the little girl delivers a precise blow to the guy's head, causing him to fall, and the girl just pushes away the sword, which was supposed to fall next to him after that. He says it's dangerous. But at that moment, Lila enters the room and sees a sword flying at her feet. The woman then lifts it with the power of water and asks what's going on. She turns to Mr. Karen and insists that the decorative balls are not intended as weapons. The guy then screams out the mistress's name and tries to justify himself, but he tells the women that she will hear the rest in the disciplinary room. After all, no matter how important the hierarchy of power is, they will not tolerate the use of weapons that do not correspond to the limits of pure strength and abilities to the detriment of the woman, after which the guy will be killed. And then the main character thanks her, but Layla says that it's not worth it. After all, this was the only offense for the head of the educational institution, but the main character then argues that she should remain neutral, and the woman responds that in her position, she should make fair judgments. Afterwards, the main character, with a warm smile on her face, thanks the woman for her help. The girl also asks whether she should write an explanatory note or go to the disciplinary room. But Lila says she heard everything in the hallway and there's no need for the lady to go to the disciplinary room. So the woman looks at the girl and sees that she's practically glowing, after which she turns around and just inhales. He also claims to be talking to an excellent high school student and, what's more, that person asked her to take care of her, and this is his first request, so it's surprising. The main character wonders what kind of person he was. The woman then replies that it's her father, Mr. Pierre, and the girl is shocked. That same evening, she paces her room, wondering what to do. The woman claimed that she was in debt to Monsieur Pierre and followed him. Therefore, the young lady now thinks that, using Pierre, she deceived everyone here and there, and Layla turned out to be his subordinate, and the girl wonders whether this makes any sense at all, so she thinks about what kind of Pierre awaits her on the other side of the door. And the girl thinks he will ask if she had fun fooling him all this time, and also how long she thought about deceiving him. The young lady realizes that she will have nothing to say in her defense, and perhaps this marks the end of pretense, and also maybe she has enough of pretending and should get along with him. Well, the young lady then reaches out to the door and realizes that first she needs to meet him. And it would be nice if he wasn't so angry, after which the girl enters the room and sees her father there. The man stands there, his expression indifferent, lost in thought. He remembers the girl asking the teacher if he needed a second student, and the boy realizes he knew his daughter was lying from the start, but at that moment, it was all too obvious. Then he wanted to end it all, and he thought about ending this relationship between teacher and student, which was nothing more than a game. The guy thought so. However, when the young lady raised her hand and joyfully claimed to have defeated the guy, he still couldn't do it. And because he agreed to this relationship out of interest, he thought that he could let them go at any moment. But the guy now understands that for the first time, he doesn't want to let someone go, but he still doesn't understand why. After this, they look at each other and remain silent, and the main character thinks how awkward this is. But then the boy notices a note in her hands and asks what it is, and the girl replies that she brought it for the teacher. The girl then shows him this piece of paper and asks if he is interested in what is there and if the teacher is worried, but the boy replies that he is not very worried. And the girl then only thinks that she succeeded because she did not know where to start talking. But he seems to react as usual, and the young lady understands that he does not look particularly angry. And the main character realizes she doesn't know the reason, but she's not going to tell the story first. But then the girl realizes she should probably try her luck first, so she thinks, as I originally planned. She's trying out Rugi and Ruby's recipe, so now the girl tells the teacher to wait because she's going to cook an amazing dish today, and the man then asks, a little surprised, if she's going to cook. After that, he sits down at the table and waits for the girl. Well, the young lady doesn't keep him waiting long, and a little while later approaches the teacher. With a tray in his hands, he asks how long he waited, and also states that everything is ready. The girl places the tray on the table and claims that this is a dish that fully takes into account the teacher's nutritional balance, and the man then asks if she is talking about nutritional balance, and the girl replies that the teacher's chef intervened a little and helped her. So let the teacher wait impatiently, and then Calypso lifts the lid from the tray and into the teacher's view. A terrible dish is presented. The guy then turns to the young lady and insists that she said his diet was taken into account, and their main character then replies that yes, it is a very valuable recipe because it contains all 3 essential nutrient groups. The girl also claims that she actually wanted to apologize to the teacher and that this dish also has such a message. The young lady claims that she suddenly asked to take a second student and brought her brother. So the little girl claims it was very reckless and asks him to accept her apology. The man then looks at the little girl and remembers how she first met him with a bright smile on her face. And now, seeing how sad she is, the man still sighs and then tells her to explain the dish, and the little girl asks what she is talking about. After which her father claims that if she served the dish, she should tell about it, and the young lady then replies that yes, and as for the recipe, it was given to her by Ruba and Ruga, who are children from the Beluga family. The man at this time begins to use his water power and heals the young lady's hands. But the girl doesn't notice this or claims that it was a fake, after which she asks what happened to the teacher, but he replies that he didn't like it. He then declares that he won't be taking on any more students, and the young lady replies that she understands and then apologizes to the teacher. But the boy merely tells her not to make the same mistake again, and the girl agrees. Then she turns to the teacher and wonders if she can ask him now. The teacher asks what happened, and the girl insists that frankly, something strange happened at school today, after which she claims that her dad asked Layla to look after her. After which, the little girl turns to the teacher and asks what he thinks. The young lady also understands that she's already been caught, but she's still acting like a fool, so she thinks the teacher should ask the reason. But the father then asks what happened to Togo, and the young lady understands that because of the Dragon Duke who didn't care, this world would be destroyed, and now she hates things she's unsure of. The man asks her what she thinks and why she's even asking him, since he's not her father. The main character then wonders when he finally realized she was lying and why he's helping her. After that, the little girl clenches her fist and thinks, "That's it, that's it." Meanwhile, the man just takes another piece of the dish and realizes he's never eaten anything like this before. The girl then thinks he's just being natural, but then insists that the teacher is about the same age as her father, which is why she was curious. They're the same age, and she wondered what he was thinking. The main character then understands that if he was going to stick to her pretense, then why didn't he say anything? And the guy at this time replies that they are all the same as adults, to which the little girl only remains silent and understands that it means he does not want to talk, and even when immersed in eternal sleep, you will not hear anything good from him. At this time, Pierre puts down his cutlery and says that maybe it's because her father values her and loves her, because the girl herself said that her father loves and cherishes her. So that's the answer. The girl then looks at her hands, but then sees that the wound on her hand has healed prematurely. After which she simply puts them together and says that this is most likely the case. The next day, the young lady's brother watches the training in horror, wondering what the hell this is. After all, the young lady is now walking with a huge boulder on her shoulders and is already counting 335 steps, and her father only tells her to strengthen her legs. That's why the boy is now in shock, wondering how many kilograms this boulder weighs and how a 3-year-old child can lift a boulder 300 times heavier than himself. The guy understands that now he sees that the girl has transformed the power of water into muscle and used it that way. At this time, the young lady sees a stone in the teacher's hands and asks that he won't throw it, but the man replies that he is actually going to and tells her to dodge, because this is also training. The main character then begins to dodge these stones, screaming that this is a plunge into eternal sleep. But she still wants to live. And the boy watching this understands that maybe he had no chance of winning. The main character then realizes that Pierre's third son, named Agenor, was a genius whose abilities were recognized from an early age. But this was not enough, because he was interested in where his limit was, and the guy wanted to compete with someone outstanding. But as his strength increased, no one dared to become his opponent, so the young man changed his method, and after deliberate pursuit, he defeated the strongest one after another. This was Agenor's joy. Until one day, a younger sister appeared before his eyes. Moreover, judging by the rumors, the younger sister was a blood relative, and the girl is now telling the teacher that she completed the plan for today. The man then claims that she is holding up well and he will add another one, and the boy then realizes that his sister called his father a teacher and not a dad without even knowing what was going on, and it is true that his father cares for Agenor's younger sister. At this time, Pierre tells the girl to avoid any sudden movements, and the young lady wonders where she has ever seen such a thing. At this time, the boy understands that there is no doubt and the girl is real. But her motto is that strong people get through, so he thinks that if it is scammers who cannot get through. And the guy understands that in order to stay safe and sound, he needs to respect her and do what she says. Well, the guy understands that he is not confident that he will endure this crazy training. At this time, the father turns to his son and asks what he is doing, after which he states that he is next. Well then, he sees that the guy is silent and wonders what happened. However, the young man then claims that he will ask the teacher for a stone smaller than Calypso's. The main character and her father then look at the boy in shock, and the man then asks if the boy wants a smaller stone and does he really have no pride at all, and the boy then immediately answers that everything is correct and there is none. The young man then claims that he will become strong within the limits of his capabilities, and the guy then thinks that he calls his father a teacher and does not understand what is wrong, because he can do this. And his little sister did him a favor. Meanwhile, the little girl collapses under the weight of boulders, after which she barely crawls up to the teacher and asks if her training is over. Pierre then replies that yes, and now it's the boy's turn, and the main character then says that the long-awaited rest has finally arrived. The boy then sees a glass of water near the towels, and, using his water power, takes them into his hands. Then he approaches his sister and tells her she did a good job. The young lady then takes the towel and wonders what's wrong with it, and whether the guy has really lost his mind. The young lady then thinks, what happened? Because his eyes are sparkling. The guy then claims that it's really amazing, and the lady is so cool, and the main character then just takes a glass of ice and replies that yes. The guy then says that when he looked at his younger sister, something came to his mind, after which he asks if the girl could do him a favor, and the young lady asks what favor he is talking about. The young lady also tells him to tell her what's there first, and she'll listen. The boy then begins his story and claims he has 2 brothers, and the second brother's name is Atlan. The main character then replies that she knows, and after that the guy only tells her to call her second brother too. After this, the girl, in shock, asks what he is talking about. Anya understands that only a sister can call the shameless and temperamental second brother. And after all, I am not her equal as a guy, because even the look of his brother infuriates him. So now, with a sinister smile on his face, he understands that he cannot be the only loser. After which, the young man smiles warmly and tells the girl to use him so hard that he won't be able to recover. A little while later, the main character is already sitting on a bench and thinking about her brother's words. The young lady also remembers her second brother and realizes that in some ways he is similar to Bine, but the difference is that he loves to play pranks. And since her 2 brothers hate losing, they must not have been close. So the young lady now wonders if the relationship between Agenor and Atlanta was bad. But in their previous life they were ideal companions, and they may not have been brother and sister, but their bonds were strong. And in moments of crisis, they didn't run away, even if it hurt. The girl now understands that they won't be confronting Atlan anytime soon, and she decides to simply ignore Agenor's insane words. At this point, 2 twins approach the young lady and ask what she's doing there. The girl can only remember her brother and his last words. So she could live, and the little girl would understand that he loved their taxis so much he was willing to give his life for them. The young lady, however, realizes that now will never be like her second life, after which she turns to the Geminis and claims that she thought they were brothers too. The boys then reply, yes, and ask what's wrong. And when the young lady asks if they get along, they both answer in unison that they don't. One of them then claims that Ruba always says he's older, and the other guy then asks if his brother thinks that's not true, and if so, he should ask his mother. The young lady then tries to separate them and claims that it is okay, and she understands, so let them calm down. Well, one of the guys then tells the lady that Charon didn't come today either. And the main character replies that this is true, because he has not been seen for several days. The boys then claim that since Karan didn't show up, the atmosphere in the classroom became strange, and it felt like the class had split in two. The main character then says something like this, after which she claims she's curious about the criteria for dividing them. A short time later, the girl is already heading down the hallway when Lila approaches her. The woman asks if the little girl is coming back, and the main character then replies that yes, and asks if she needs anything from her, but the woman only tells her to come closer, after which she asks if she knows that a family meeting will take place soon. The protagonist then replies that she knows this place, where the head of the family is present. Layla then replies that this is true and that the girl should be careful, as the average promising candidates who've been nominated so far rarely disappear right before the family meeting. The main character then affirms that she appreciates her concern, but insists that she's fine because her dad will protect her and Layla will be there too. The woman then replies that it's fine, but insists that she can't let her guard down because there are so many cracks in this huge family. The girl then turns around and claims that she will keep this in mind, but she herself understands that her father will not protect her. She also needs to prepare for a family meeting, so the girl realizes that she is also worried about the atmosphere in the classroom. The young lady's brother at this time claims that it may be because the receiver has changed. Meanwhile, the little girl turns to Agenor and asks why he's here, and the boy replies that he's going with her to see the teacher. The young lady asks if they really need to go together, and the boy replies that they can go together every day. And he also claims that he was surprised when he saw her descend onto the stretcher, after which he asks if the girl has decided on her subordinates. And the young man also asks what his rank is, and he is not the first, but the guy then with an evil smile asserts that he can become the first if he beats these children and asks if this is true. However, the main character claims that if he touches them, she will finish him off, and the guy then claims that he wants to try. The young lady then grabs him by the collar and asks where his conscience has gone, since these are little children. After which the main character finally lets her brother go and claims that if we talk about heirs, Bain and Solte are the main candidates. Agenor then replies that this is the correct answer and it seems that the atmosphere reigns in high school. After which the guy asks Madame Little Sister what she is going to do with the family meeting. The young lady then replies that this is her first time participating, but the boy tells her not to worry, as he will introduce the lady to his younger sister. The main character then realizes that it would be nice if Agenor introduced her, and even better if her father did it, but that's hopeless. At this time, the guy tells his sister to be careful, because before the family gathering, all sorts of people gather and they attack him and his first and second brothers. And he certainly doesn't think that Madame Junior's sister will lose. And then he asks, will she use him? He needs the girl to use him at the right moment. However, the main character then tells him to stay back with a smile and grabs his cheek, after which the boy gasps and says he gives up. A few days later, the young lady is already walking around the school courtyard and realizes that the last few days have been calm. Now she is reading a note that tells her to quietly follow to the backyard, and if she does not appear, her beloved twins will be in danger. The main character then squeezes this note and thinks how stupid it is and to believe this is just like a third-rate villain. The girl then realizes that it is time to look at his smug face, after which she heads to the place indicated in the letter. When the girl arrives, the same bully appears there and says that she really came. One of the guys then asks if this is really the girl, and everything is not as complicated as he thought, after which the guy asks if Karan wants to say that it was the little rat that caused them trouble. However, the main character only gets angry after this and claims that there is a rat there, after which he asks why the guy thought he could compare her to something earthly, and what's more, he also holds weak children hostage and blackmails them. That's why his brain is smaller than a jellyfish's. After this, the guy only changes his forehead and claims he only heard rumors. But this is quite interesting because the young lady can really speak, so she tells the guy that it is in vain that the grandmother's interested in her. However, after this, the main character only pushes the guy's hand away, and this leaves a mark on her, and the young man is a little surprised, but the main character then asks if the grandmother would be interested if these were just words, and also calls the guy an idiot. And then she tells him to give her the twins. Otherwise, they'll all be held accountable. However, The young man only grins and says it's funny. And it seems being Pierre's child isn't the only thing she can boast about. Calypso then claims that the tavern and her father are the famous Pierre Aquaciadel, after which the henchmen are a little perplexed and wonder what to do. Meanwhile, Bean turns to the girl and asks what's wrong with Togo and whether she's the one who relies only on her father. However, the girl then replies that no, and that she is the one who inherited most of his talent, so they will remember that. After which, the young lady screams for Ruga and Ruba to scream right now. After this, Baini simply turns to them and wonders what the hell is going on. The protagonist then realizes that all aquatic animals have evolved with weapons that suit them, and the orcas are certainly strong as a unit. But every force has a counterforce, and the weapons of Ruga and Ruba. It's a deafening, piercing, ultrasonic scream. The young lady now covers her ears and then turns to Agenor, and he tells him to save the twins, after which the guy tells the girl to leave it to him. At this point, Bean is simply thinking that these twins are causing a ton of trouble. However, the main character is simply asking what he's looking at, after which she grabs the guy by the collar, and when the young man looks at her, he sees only a fist directed towards him, and the young lady claims that she is his opponent and then punches him in the face with all her might. After the blow, the young man only looks angrily at Calypso and then says that she is a worthless person. And after this, the main character only asks what it's like to be beaten by a worthless person. After which, she cries out for Agenor to protect the twins at any cost. But the boy then asks his younger sister if she can handle it herself, and the girl replies, "Of course," and asks who he thinks she is. After which she lures the other killer whales into a fight and asks what they're doing and if they're scared. And he tells them to come closer. Then the great brawl begins. And the third brother, the young lady, watches it all and wonders if they should call it a battle. After all, battles between killer whales usually take place gracefully, and this is due to the fact that they use the power of water. However, it looks more like a dogfight, and now one of the guys is screaming for the other to remove the girl. Bine then screams for the guy to hit her and asks if the henchman can't just throw her off and let him use the power of water. Agenor then thinks that in this unawakened state, his little sister is even better than his first brother, and the young man can't help but smile at this thought. The girl at this time continues to scatter all of Bean's minions, and the guy then claims that if he cannot catch this child, then they'll have to take the twins hostage again. But then someone approaches them, and he begins to use his power, after which the killer whales immediately scream in pain. They scream that they are going to go deaf, and their ears hurt a lot. At this time, the man approaches Prince Agenor, and claims that he rushed after him as soon as he contacted him. It turns out to be the twins' father, but he asks what's going on there. One of the guys then turns to his dad and then says with tears in his eyes that Ruga doesn't open her eyes. The young lady's third brother then asserts that the man can hear the explanation later. After all, it looks like his little sister's fight is coming to an end. The main character then realizes they're not far from the building, and after all the noise, she's sure someone's coming. And at that very moment, Layla comes running and screams for them to stop, after which she asks what they did there. The main character then just smirks, and a little while later she is sitting on the sofa, already healed. The woman asks her to explain the whole situation. The little girl then tells her to wait and asks if they can give her a minute to calm down, to which the woman replies, "Of course." And after this, the main character just takes a sip of her tea, and then claims that she will say in advance that they were the first to be attacked. More precisely, the Beluga twins were attacked, and they are only about 7 years old. The girl then claims that she knows better than anyone that the killer whales are not interested in protecting children, but this only applies to killer whales and other whales from the fighting family, after which the little girl asks if this is not true, and then he slams his hand on the table and claims that this educational institution has rules that must be followed. After all, middle school students are not allowed to harm elementary school students under any circumstances. The young lady claims that everyone thinks this is an old rule that no one cares about, and they'll get away with it as long as they're not caught. But this rule was announced in the name of the ancestors of the killer whales, so this issue cannot be taken lightly. And the girl then claims that this is why she, Calypso Aquaciadel, is officially requesting the disciplinary committee. The girl understands that Baine is confident in his abilities and status, and he hopes to get out of this unscathed. But she also understands that her grandmother dislikes non-compliance with the rules more than violence, and apparently he doesn't know her grandmother's character well. So the little girl now understands that she's not going to attack everyone. And Bine is still green. Meanwhile, the woman insists that, as Calypso wishes, a supreme disciplinary committee will be convened. And since the princess is also an interested party, her participation is mandatory. The young lady then just leans back on the sofa and replies that of course it's not difficult. And then Lila says that she should be accompanied by a guardian to the high disciplinary committee as well. The main character is a little surprised after this, and the woman claims that, in other words, the young lady needs to bring her father. The young lady then thinks about what kind of expression he will have on his face and doesn't even know what to do. A little while later, the woman says goodbye to the lady, and the girl understands that she only planned to hold a meeting of the disciplinary committee and never thought that a guardian should accompany her, because this is the first time she hears about it. But the main character also thinks about what she should say and whether she really needs to say that she fought with Bini, and also ask Pierre if he wants to appear before the disciplinary committee as her father. But the girl then thinks what will happen if he says that he is not her father. Well, at this time, someone approaches the young lady and says that he was waiting for her. And the girl looked at this person. He realizes that she is the twins' father. The man introduces himself and says his name is Roba Beluga, and he's also there to thank her. The girl then asks how Ruga and Ruba are feeling, and the man replies that his wife, who is the head of the Beluga family, took them, after which he thanks the lady again. And he claims that if she had not contacted them in advance, he might not have made it in time. The girl then claims that she simply did what she had to, and besides, Ruga and Ruba were drawn into this because of her. So now the main character asks for forgiveness on behalf of the stupid killer whales. The girl claims that the orcas think they can do anything because they are strong and they ignore and disregard morals, ethics, and rules. Calypso then claims that she is also responsible for Ruga and Ruba being drawn into the orcas' atrocities, so he asks for forgiveness. The man is a little surprised at this point, but then asserts that it's hard to expect kindness from killer whales. After all, as the lady said, these creatures are far from moral. And the young lady then understands that this hurts, but the man then claims that after meeting the lady, his opinion has changed. And now he claims to accept the apology. The girl then understands that he's thought about this at least once in every relationship, but it's difficult to say out loud, and after all, it's always nice to hear the truth. In her past life, the girl also remembers how her older brother claimed that he even felt sorry for Blug because Bean threatened them to follow him, but they refused, and then he plunged them all into eternal sleep. And although Roba was an outstanding warrior, and although he was Beluga, he knew how to fight. The young lady then realizes that she has remembered, and Bine is a person with whom she will never be able to get along. So now the girl only thanks the man, and claims that she will visit Ruba soon. The man just smiled and said it was good, because the children would be happy. After that, time went on. And now several boys are walking down the hallway, and one of them asks another if he heard what they were saying about the lady, and another then asks if he means that she fought with Mr. Bine and won. They also claim that Mr. Bine was completely defeated. The main character realizes that rumors about the little lady who knocked out Bane have spread quickly through elementary, middle, and higher education. Now one of the boys claims it's nonsense, and that the cover could be lost to an elementary school girl. Moreover, she didn't even awaken the village of water. Well, at this time, the young man with gray hair suggests summing up the results, after which he turns to his friend and says that Bine and the lady had a fight, and the lady won by a large margin. After which he turns to Atlanta and asks what he thinks and whether he will say anything. However, the young man then only gets up and asks if he wants to enter into eternal sleep. The gray-haired boy then becomes frightened and jumps up, says no, and asks if his friend won't say anything. After all, she is his sister. The guy at this time only thinks a little and then says that his friend should not be funny because he doesn't have a sister. And he also says that if the guy wakes him up again, he will definitely put Togo into eternal sleep, and the guy with gray hair then screams that he understood and also understands that his friend is furious. Meanwhile, everyone at the university is busy with their own affairs. But then someone asks what the gentleman thinks about the rumors about the lady. The boy sits silently with a book. It's Calypso's older brother, Bellis, who appears. And the young man claims that if they committed a crime, they must be punished, and the two girls then ask what Bellis means. However, the guy then replies that breaking the rules is what his grandmother hates the most. And the real problem is not Bane. At this time, the main character, with a smile on her face, cries out that she won the group fight. After which she claims that all this is thanks to the teacher's lessons, and thanks to him she was able to win. However, the girl also thinks that she cannot believe that she felt so bad after the fight and that children do get tired. However, when the young lady looks at her father, she sees that he is very displeased and wonders why he looks that way. Calypso realizes she needs him to be in a good mood to broach the subject of attending the disciplinary committee. However, the man at this time claims that only a battle without receiving injuries can be called a victory. However, the young lady then asks what he is talking about and how she can win if she does not get injured, but the guy claims that he emerged victorious without any injuries. But the girl then claims she hasn't even awakened. The man, however, only looks at her coldly and insists that from the moment she decided to call him teacher, hasn't she decided to follow his words as if they were law? The young lady then becomes a little alarmed and replies that it is so. Meanwhile, Pierre insists that the victory of countries cannot be called a victory and that it is a lack of ability. The girl then thinks that he will either praise her or scold her, and does not understand whether he thinks that at such an age it is easy to win. After which the little girl, with tears in her eyes, thinks how he cannot give her a compliment because she studies harder than anyone else. And just as before, she still tries very hard. After which the little girl just turns around, and her father asks where she is going, and the girl then answers that she doesn't know, and just leaves. As Calypso walks away from her father, she thinks that her real dad would never do something like that. The girl also remembers how warmly he treated her and understands that she misses him very much. But Pierre then lifts the baby up with the help of water power, and then she claims her body is a weapon. The girl then asks what that even means. And the man claims that if a weapon isn't properly maintained, it can break or get chewed. The same thing happens to her body, and he, as a teacher, reproaches her for neglecting the weapon, because a weapon that has been perfected can be used throughout one's life. And he is the man who failed in the forging of this weapon. The baby then understands that although he has a mighty power that everyone reveres, he is, however, an unfortunate, terminally ill orca, and he himself considers his life a failure. The main character then also recalls her brother's words from her past life. And the boy claimed that until Mr. Pierre closed his eyes, there wasn't a day when he didn't attract attention. And the little girl understands that, having failed to take care of his weak body whenever possible, he lived on the receiving end of unwanted attention until he fell into eternal sleep. And the girl then understands that if only she could acquire two things, powerful strength and a body, and also be healthy. So now, the little girl is being asked whether she was wrong to get hurt and whether such a victory is wrong. The young lady also thinks how she can win as proudly as he does. And what if she doesn't get out of it? Then his victory would be too easy. And yet she can't even obtain the power of water. The man then burned her, claiming that even if he answered, she still wouldn't listen. He also claims that the relationship between a teacher and a student inevitably breaks down, and he asks if the girl didn't want him to remain distant and cold. The young lady then realizes that his voice is subdued and wonders if it is her imagination. But then the girl finally understands that this is something different. After which she turns to the teacher and asks if he was worried about her. The guy then claims that her dad said that he values and loves her very much, so then he asks what should be said at such moments. And the little girl then replies that he needs to say that he was very worried and then scold her. After which he must hug her tightly and at the end say that he loves his daughter. Well, Now the little girl asks the teacher if he could repeat just one phrase after her and say that he was worried about her. The man then looks at the baby and then strokes her head, after which he claims that he was worried about Calypso. And the little girl now understands, with a smile on her face, that now she understands why he came there, despite his limp. A little while later, the little girl is already sitting at the table with her brother, and he asks if this means that they themselves will be present. The young lady then replies that, yes, that's just how it happened. She realizes that after her ugly complaints on the way back that day, she still couldn't bring up the topic of her parents' return. And now the girl understands that there is nothing she can do, because she has no choice but to refuse her father's return home. And no matter how much she thinks about it, she cannot find a way to talk to her father without consequences. At this time, the boy asks if everything will be okay, because this is a place where parents, must definitely be involved. However, the young lady then simply puts down her cutlery and claims that if it were just him and her, they would be able to come up with something. But it's difficult to ask the teacher so suddenly. Well, the boy then asks if she can't tell her father everything right now, but the young lady notes that it's not yet possible. Calypso understands that the Duke will not see the dragon yet. She wants to stay with Pierre as they are now. The boy simply insists that he's not worried, since his younger sister's mistress probably has her own thoughts. He then claims he didn't know the Supreme Disciplinary Committee, and the family meeting would be held on the same day. The young lady then replies that yes, after which she realizes that she has spread so many rumors that even her presence would attract attention, so she would like to see the expression on the face of her grandmother, who is ignoring her. And since Bean won't be able to attend either, there's no need to worry about that. The young lady also understands that if it weren't for Agenor, it would be very difficult to deal with Bean's gang. That's why now the little girl turns to her brother and thanks him for helping her without asking the reason. Well, the young man then asks what she is talking about, because he was having fun and this was the first time he fought to protect someone. The young lady then asks if this is true, after which she says it's to be expected, and also asserts that there will be more of them in the future. When they turn to the lady, the younger sister asserts that if she says so, then so it will be, and the main character thinks so. If he treats her like that, doesn't it sound like some kind of religion? At that moment, the maid enters the room and is a little surprised. Another maid then says it's no wonder they asked for more tea, and after all, the young master was there. Well, okay then, she says, so they can see how well these two get along. After which the maid immediately approaches the young master and says that he is so handsome and that the two of them really look alike. The boy crawls under the table and screams, turning to his younger sister, claiming they need to talk about tomorrow's disciplinary committee meeting. However, the young lady, having hidden there beforehand, realizes she's now been exposed. The girl then replies that yes, and that is true, so let the Herring sisters leave right now. The girls do so after this, and the young lady then turns to her brother and asserts that tomorrow he will follow what she says. After which the girl tells him to listen carefully, and then Calypso explains to him what to do. The guy then agrees and replies that he understands and will do everything as she said. But he also asks if everything will be okay, since they won't even tell their father. However, after this, the little girl only smiles and tells Agenor to believe that they are enough to cope, and the boy then understands that he completely trusts his younger sister, but wonders if everything will really be okay. The next day it was time for the Supreme Council, and the young lady was now getting out of the carriage, and also realized that the Supreme Council was beginning. However, the young lady thinks how uncomfortable her clothes are, and remembers how the Herring sisters cried out that the lady needed a suit. They also told her to leave it to them, and the girl understands that even when she said that it was not such an important thing, they did not listen. And the main character now understands that she felt sincerity from them, and that's not bad. The maid claimed that clothing could be a weapon. The young lady also recalls her father claiming that her body was a weapon, and Calypso now only smiles at the thought. But at this time, someone turns to the lady and tells her to go there, after which the little girl agrees and says that she is going. And when she approaches, she realizes that she is glad that she did not raise the issue of calling the parents first, because Pierre would also like to maintain the pretense of a teacher-student relationship. The girl then realizes that she can do it, and gets used to solving everything alone, after which she goes into one of the rooms. And everyone there also starts gossiping and claiming that this is true. Lady Calypso. Everyone looks at the girl in shock and thinks how beautiful she is. However, they immediately wonder if such a little girl can really fight. And, as expected, Pierre's blood flows in her. The main character then realizes that since the day coincides with a family gathering, there are few people and it seems that most of them came to look at her, and Calypso also thinks that it is strange that the dates coincided and that Lila would not do something like that. At this time, the woman turns to the lady and says that she has arrived. She also claims that today she looks different than usual. The young lady then claims the maids were working hard, and she asks if it's nice. The woman merely nods and then says the girl can sit with young Master Agenorm. Layla then also thinks that Pierre's appearance is also striking, but the lady is magnificent in another sense, and whether the girl inherited this from her mother. One of the women then, looking at these two, says that the lady greeted the young Master Agenor, and the other asks if the master didn't say that there is a bad relationship between the brother and sister. However, the other woman then responds that she thinks it is a lie that Pierre's children met face to face during the fight, and then the little girl begins to look around and understands. That Bine also came, but as expected, the uncle did not come. The young lady then sees the guy staring at her, then shows him the middle finger and wonders where he is going to stare. And after all, the uncle should be fawning over the grandmother at the family council, but apparently the aunt came instead of him. That's why the main character thinks how complicated everything is. Because all the power on the uncle's side resides there, and a descendant of the collateral line is better than an incompetent direct descendant. At this point, Layla asks everyone to be quiet, and he claims that from this moment on, the Supreme Disciplinary Committee begins its work. The woman asks everyone present, regardless of class, to promise to tell only the truth in the name of the sea, after which she says that Bine is the first defendant on today's agenda. The guy then says that in the name of the sea he promises, and the woman then turns to the victims of today's agenda, Lady Calypso and Mr. Agenor. After which, in the name of the sea, they make a promise. But then someone interrupts the conversation, and she claims that, as the chair of the disciplinary committee, she has something to offer. This woman turns out to be the chairwoman of a high school from a branch of the Orca family, and her name is Chaya. She claims that this meeting is dedicated to the guidance of minor students, therefore, as far as she knows, they were notified in advance that they must be accompanied by a guardian. But then she asks why there is no guardian next to Lady Calypso and Lord Agenor, and the young lady understands that this moment has come. But she thought that she could slip through thanks to Layla, because she saw that Dad didn't come and probably tried to help in her own way. But on the other hand, there is an old friend of her grandmother, and she is an extremely principled person. The main character then claims that she does not have a guardian, and that by law, immature people need a guardian. However, she and her brother Agenor lack the maturity to worry about, so they will be their own protectors. Whispers immediately begin in the back, asking if there's a reason why Master Pierre didn't come. Someone even asks if he might be sick. However, someone else is wondering if this is not the law. At this point, Lila rises from her seat and orders silence in the hall, after which she asserts that in this case, Lady Calypso and Lord Agenor have no guardian. The head of the family's friend, meanwhile, cries out that this is unacceptable and that the law is the law, so the meeting cannot continue for people who cannot even observe basic rules. She then turns to Lady Calypso and tells her to summon her guardian immediately. The main character then realizes that her grandmother's friend is not helping at all. Meanwhile, Binet just smirks and asks why she doesn't just do it. They say the kids don't have a dad, so he asks what to do. One of the people present then laughs and insists that Bine is right, and another man says they should hurry up and get started because they still need to go to a family meeting. However, an old friend of the grandmother then tells everyone to be quiet, after which she claims that Lady Calypso and Mr. Agenor are without a guardian. Calypso then realizes that she needs to calm down because she expected this option, but the woman at this time claims that the meeting is planned to be cancelled. and the girl then thinks that she needs to think calmly and come up with a way to change the situation. But then someone else comes into the room and claims that the law is the law, and the young lady, looking at this person, is very surprised. A man just walks into the room and states that of course he must comply with it, after which he claims that the guardian of his son and daughter is here and now present. Calypso then, in shock, thinks about how this happened. And this is the first time in 4 regressions that she is in such a panic. The girl looks at her brother and realizes he clearly wasn't expecting it either. Although she doesn't know how or why her father came there, it would look strange if she was surprised too. Besides, there are so many rumors that she can't refute them. So now the little girl gets up from her seat and thinks that if this is how it is necessary to act. After which, with a smile on her face, she runs up to her father and addresses him as Daddy. After which she jumps up to him and mentally asks him to pick her up. The man then does just that, after which he apologizes for being late, and the little girl then asks if Daddy is feeling well. After all, she thought he wouldn't be able to come. Calypso, too, nearly faints, and in her mind asks him to play along, and also to say something, wondering if it would be better for her to remain silent. The young lady's father then replies that yes, and he feels well, after which he claims that he seems to have made her worry. The committee members then just look at the two of them in shock, and the man then asks if a separate confirmation of presence is necessary, to which Layla replies that no, and participation is confirmed. Chaya then tells Mr. Pierre that they haven't seen each other for a long time and she knew that he wouldn't be able to come, but, however, the man then interrupts him and claims that his daughter was so worried that she did not tell him in time, and he was a little late. The girl then wondered if he could really speak so normally, but at this time Bine loses his temper and only screams that this is wrong because the man did not appear on time. Lila then turns to Mr. Bane and asks him to refrain from making unnecessary noise, since this situation has been acknowledged by all members of the meeting. However, the guy then just starts using his power and asks if she thinks that he will leave it alone and just watch. But then someone tells the guy to calm down. The woman then claims that the members of the congregation allowed this to happen. After which the guy just sits down and curses angrily, and the little girl understands that if he interferes, nothing good will come of it and it's so stupid. The young lady also understands that now punishment is inevitable, after which she thinks, doesn't he know who determines the degree and content of punishment, although it would be good if he were destroyed from the very beginning. Moreover, the girl understands that if he had used force there, they would have seen Bine lying on the floor. That's why it's such a shame. At this point, Layla turns to Monsieur Pierre and asks him to take his place. The young lady then realizes that she needs to remember to smile. But when she looks at her father, she sees that he's merely smirking, wondering if he's openly laughing at her. Meanwhile, Layla calls for silence in the room, as there's been a minor misunderstanding, and the conversation will resume about the agenda, after which she claims it's a meeting. But before the woman can finish, one of the servants immediately runs into the room and shouts that he is the head of the family. The guy claims that the High Disciplinary Committee should immediately close the meeting and that the trial was ordered to be moved to the Blue Room. In this way, the Disciplinary Committee, in the presence of the head of the family, will resume its work within the framework of the family meeting. The main character then comes into shock and wonders what they are talking about. The girl then understands that this cannot be, and if they go to the meeting, then that guy will have an advantage because the power of the chairman of the disciplinary committee in educational institutions is very great, and so Bine's punishment was inevitable. However, if they went to the family meeting, there will be many forces friendly to Bainu there, and if they move to a more advantageous place for this guy, he will be able to avoid punishment, not to mention a fair sentence. At this time, Agenor turns to his younger sister and asks what they should do. But the girl replies that, in any case, they can't do anything and he knows that the order to the grandmother is absolute. The young lady also thought about how much she wanted to see Bine receive his punishment. But the young lady's father at this time insists that everything is fine, and the girl then asks what he is talking about and what is fine. The man then simply replies that this is what she is thinking about and everything will be fine, and also that there is no need to force yourself to be polite because he is not used to this, after which the girl replies that she understands. And when they head to another room, The young lady realizes that her father is a real celebrity, and everyone looks their way. So the girl asks her dad if she can't walk on her own, but the guy asks for a time period, and the little girl realizes he's making her speechless. Well, she still understands that it would be good if the rumors spread even further, and let these people watch as much as they want. However, Calypso still doesn't understand why her father is doing this. At this point, the young lady's brother turns to her and asks if she's ever been to the Blue Hall. The girl then replies that no, and she wasn't. However, in her mind, she realizes that she absolutely was. The guy then claims that for family gatherings, traditionally the 3 largest halls are used in turn, and the Blue Hall is one of them. After which the guy replies that they arrived, and it's there. The young lady then realizes that the blue room had 2 meanings. Firstly, as the name suggests, its door is bright blue. Another meaning is that it's the place where waves originate. And the history of killer whales has been turbulent for many generations. And this name was given because the excitement came from there, so the girl understands that she is returning to this place again. When they enter the hall, someone announces that Mr. Pierre, Mr. Agenor, and Mrs. Calypso have officially arrived. Everyone in the room is then surprised and wonders if this could really be Mr. Pierre. The woman then asks who it was that came there, after which she asks if it wasn't her son, whom she thought was no longer alive. After this, the guy only bows and greets the head of the family, and the woman claims that she should have gone somewhere and plunged into eternal sleep, but he is still alive. After this, there is silence in the room, but the little girl breaks it. After which he greets his grandmother and says she's looked younger since they last saw each other. The 2 boys just watch this with stony faces. And the woman then replies that yes, and the girl is there too. After which she points to her son and claims that smart children first learn flattery, and Calypso will be better than her impudent father. The young lady then just whispers in her dad's ear and asks if he has seen that grandma really loves to climb, so let him learn from her. After which the little girl tells her dad that everything is fine and they can practice, starting right now. But her brother then realizes that this is probably not the problem. However, the man only smiles after this and says that this is quite interesting advice, so he will remember it. Calypso then looks at her father in shock and wonders if he really knew how to smile like that. One of the women at the meeting then asks if they saw this because Mr. Pierre is smiling, and he really does value his youngest daughter, as the rumors say. At this time, someone rises from his seat and addresses the head of the family. It turns out to be Pierre's eldest brother, named Lodison Aquasiadel, and the man then says that he thinks it would be better to continue the adjourned meeting. And of course, he's happy to see his younger brother for the first time in a long time, but not so happy as to stop the meeting. However, the other people in the room then realize that Pierre isn't even listening and is ignoring his brother. The head of the family at this time only smiles and asks whether Lodison intervened in her conversation since it was so impudent. The man then replies that no and apologizes to his mother. And the girl then understands that this guy tried to add his word but was beautifully shut up, and that's what he deserves. After which the little girl understands that this is great, but then she thinks where their places are. And one of the maids then claims that she will take them in this direction. But when they sit down at one of the tables, everyone wonders why Mr. Pierre is sitting at them. And the main character understands that this is too far from the place of the head in the center, and no matter how you look at it, this is open ignoring. That's why now the little girl turns to her dad and asks what he should do, because his name is now being greatly neglected. The girl also claims they're too far away and her grandmother won't hear her, but then she asks if her dad is even listening, saying now isn't the time to feign ignorance. However, the man then merely claims she's gaping like a crucian carp, and the little girl replies that it's not the time to joke quietly. However, the man only claims that there is no need to worry about her voice not being heard, because her story will definitely have to be listened to. After all, they came to attend not a family meeting, but a disciplinary committee, so let the girl not forget the goal and essence. And the girl understands that the reason they came there was the disciplinary committee, but at this moment, another man arrives at the place, and everyone starts gossiping, because he's also here. But one of the guests insists that this man can't help but come. The guy at this time turns to his grandmother and claims that she has a reason to introduce a new agenda at this meeting. After all, everyone gathered there to hear her voice. The boy then also claims that he's earnestly asking them to hear her will. It turns out to be Calypso's first older brother, Belus Aquaciadel. The woman then says that it's good and that his speech is just as smooth today, and the guy then replies that the grandmother is overpraising him. After which the woman replies that it's fine and let him go and sit over there. After which the guy agrees and the main character realizes that this opportunist is her older brother. At this time, Ogula claims that she heard that an interesting incident occurred at the educational institution, after which he tells those involved to come forward. And the main character, along with Bine, comes out to her. The woman then offers to listen to the reason why they created a mess in the ceremonial educational institution under her control. Bine then turns to the chief with a smile on his face and states that he will be the first to speak. After which he asks whether this can be called a disorder, since it was an unremarkable incident and it is so insignificant that it is not even worth her attention. The guy claims that the life of the killer whales is a struggle and a war, so every moment is like a battle. But just because of such a trivial and petty competition of strength, a strict disciplinary committee is opened against this guy, declaring that this is undermining the authority of the orcas as the most powerful sea werewolves. The main character then wonders if the guy realizes that his opponent in this argument is a 3-year-old child, but thinks that first she needs to see how far he will go. The young lady's grandmother at this time asks if he is saying that all this is an exaggerated false rumor and that in fact a minor incident took place. The young man then claims that he just wanted to see his younger sister, a perfect match for his younger sister, about whom rumors had recently begun to spread, and so he invited her to meet her at the same time. The young lady then wonders if he really wanted to get acquainted, threatening after he kidnapped Rug and Ruba. But this is such a casual acquaintance. The young man at this time claims that as soon as his younger cousin saw him, she immediately began to disgrace his father, and the young man asks what this is. After all, most likely she wanted to boast that she is the daughter of the strongest orca, that is, Mr. Pierre. The girl then understands that he was the one who first started talking badly about her parents, and now he dared to touch on her dad. And the young lady understands that only she can trade on her dad. At this time, the guy only claims that, unlike his smart cousin, he has a witness who will confirm his words. After which, one of the guys enters the room and the little girl wonders what kind of witness this is. Then the guy who entered the room screams that they were just going to help Mr. Bine, but it came back to them with the usual violence. After which the young man points to the main character and says that she is, after all, the daughter of Mr. Pierre. And after all, it was a fight in which she was not initially their rival. The young lady now realizes that she was a little worried when these two came in, and now she wonders if they are the witnesses. The girl sighs and wonders if they're really bragging about getting punched by a 3-year-old girl. The other boy then replies that it's true, and the lady was the first to seriously humiliate Mr. Bine, and returned the words of the gentleman. Therefore, as they see, there is no lie in the testimony of the witnesses. At this time, one of the guys whispers to the other, asking if his acting was normal because he was too nervous in front of the head of the family, and the main character at this time thinks that she hears everything and for whom they take her. The young lady's grandmother then asks if Bine is ultimately to blame, and after that, the guy just smirks, and then claims that the fact that she moved the disciplinary committee to a family meeting is probably important. So at this point, he is going to reveal it, the true nature of this nasty cousin. The little girl then only asks if he's talking about the essence, and she wonders what this new nonsense is. The guy, meanwhile, only asks, so what if she's the daughter of the distinguished Mr. Pierre? Her strength and dignity don't match his. The young man also claims that judging by the fact that she lies as easily as she breathes, then the problem is possible, training. Well, the little girl then only thinks, isn't it he who lies as easily as he breathes? After which she just yawns and realizes that she is getting bored, and also thinks when it would be best for her to carry out a counterattack. At this time, Ogula only addresses the guy and claims that if his words are shortened, he means that the tadpole, who received improper training, disrupted the order in her family. And after this, Binay replies that everything is exactly like that, and that is exactly what he is talking about. The woman then approaches the young lady and says that this is what it is like to be a non-entity who has not received recognition. She did not obey one of her heirs, and also, without knowing fear or order, she behaved so rudely. After which the woman, using the power of water, lifts the girl up and the baby understands what. The force of the water suffocates her. The young lady understands that the head of the family wields great power, but she understands that she must endure, for this is a moral struggle. But the girl still understands that it is very difficult for her to breathe, and that she will suffocate so soon. But then the little girl understands that the power of the grandmother's water has dissipated, but the little girl then understands that she is now covered by a greater power. At this time, Pierre turns to the head of the family and claims that this child is only 3 years old. However, the woman then insists that he should not make a fuss, because if he cannot endure at least this much, the girl will be a disgrace to their family. After which he asks how the guy raised her, since he didn't even teach her what is the basis of Orca society, and the weakling, not knowing her limits, lost her temper. The girl then only thinks that this old poker almost finished her off, and the little one doesn't understand what she's saying now. At this time, the woman asks Pierre whether he personally taught and raised the baby, and the main character then understands what will happen if her father now says that he did not raise her and denies her existence. What will become of her? After all the lies about her dad loving and cherishing her will be immediately revealed. So now the little girl desperately begs him in her mind to at least not tell her she's not his daughter. But the man then insists that he taught her according to his own rules. And the little girl is a little surprised after this, and Pierre at this time gets up from his place and asserts that he also taught her to be sure to hurt if a fight begins. And the little girl acted as he taught her. Without missing a beat, the grandmother sits back down and sighs, then declares that she never thought she'd see a boy defend another being in her life. And he'd ruined all her fun. The man merely pointed to his daughter and told them to listen to the story of the matter. He then asks his daughter personally if this is the role of the meeting chair. The girl then realizes that this is her chance to secure the position she so desired. In order to be able to let everyone know about her estate and boast of her power, that is why now the little girl is wondering if they really decided that she would miss this chance. After which she turns to her grandmother and states that she only wants to ask one thing. After which he asks if it is true that the rule of the Orca family is that the actions of the strong are not held accountable. The woman then replies that yes, and the young lady claims that the subject of today's debate is struggle, dignity, and so on. And they tried to identify every little detail, but something else is important. That's why the little girl claims that if her grandmother is lenient, she will tell her a very interesting fact. At this point, Bane simply raises her hand and tells the head of the family to wait and decide to speak out. However, the main character is just wondering where this idiot is going, since his turn is over. The woman then tells them to stop. Then he turns to Calypso Aquaciadel and tells her to continue. The little girl then asks how many Bine brought on the day of the fight. And there were at least 10. The elder brother Agenor took on 3, and she fought the remaining 7 herself, after which the little girl claims that she was the winner of this struggle. And Bane, a 3-year-old, completely lost to her. The little girl then thinks that he's an empty head, and how could he have been happy when he brought in witnesses? After this, the little girl only smirks and understands that she helped him. At this time, people in the hall start talking and claim that the witnesses also said that Mr. Pierre's daughter fights very well. And the baby now claims that if you follow the rules of the Orca family, then she is the winner and Bine cannot protest against her as the winner. And besides, that day her friend, who was not Orca, was drawn into the fight. And Bane Aquaciadel threatened her that if she did not take part in the fight, he would plunge her friend into eternal sleep. That's why the little girl now claims that, ultimately, all her actions were to protect her friend. After which, she turns to her respected grandmother and asks where she is at fault in all of this. The girl also claims that the orcas are the protectors of the aquatic beastmen, and for her, everything between the orcas is decided through a duel, but she said not to do this with other weak families. The woman then claims that the girl knows so much for a 3-year-old. after which she claims that she was threatened and also had to take part in a fight, but she won, so the woman replies that it's good and her story is quite interesting. Well, then she asks the girl if she has any witnesses, and the little girl understands that this is it. The young lady also understands that Agenor is involved in this, just like her, so he won't be able to help. And Ruga and Ruba are still undergoing treatment, so she doesn't have any saints. But then the little girl wonders if she really doesn't have any. After this, one of the women in the room raises her hand and addresses the respected granny. And then she states that she would like to take part as a witness. Ogula then says that the girl decided to participate after all, after which he asks why. And the woman then claims that the lady in her story mentioned close friends who were threatened with being plunged into eternal sleep, and these people were her twin sons. The main character then wonders if this is Ruga and Ruba's mother. Well, when she looks at a woman, she thinks, is their family really so influential that they can be present there? The woman at this time greets the lady and claims that she is Ilya Beluga and the head of the Beluga clan. After which she claims that one of her children was abused by the young Mr. Bine, as a result of which he received a serious head injury and is on the verge of death. The young lady then wonders in shock what she is talking about, since she was told that Ruga's life is not in danger. But the little girl then remembers the face of the boy's father and understands that the witness could, of course, be lying. And this asshole lied to Bine, so the little girl thinks, why can't they? And now she understands that she likes Beluga. The woman at this time turns to their leader and asks who to take this problem seriously. Because why did her child have to suffer in a fight between the orcas? After which she also states that, as a representative of all vassal families, she cannot sit idly by. And he believes that this incident should not harm the outstanding orcas, who respect and do not torment their weak vassals. The twins' father then claims that he was the one who reported the incident to the head of the junior academy and can invite those who were with him at the time as witnesses. However, the young lady then claims that she thinks there are enough witnesses. The woman then just stares at all of this, but then she just starts laughing. After she calms down, she says that's fine and she's not interested in someone who can't even accept the outcome of a fight with a 3-year-old. Bine then tells his grandmother in shock that everything is wrong, but she only tells the boy to shut up, after which he remains silent about the tasks. The woman then claims that it was absurd, but she heard the baby and will then make a decision. The woman then claims that Bain Aquasiadel, during a demonstration of his power, injured the child of an important vassal family. Yes, and furthermore, in addition to violating the Academy's strict rules, he tried to minimize his own mistakes and dared to lie to the head of the family. Therefore, taking all this into account, the woman orders that Baina Aquasiadel be expelled from the Academy and placed under house arrest for 1 year. The boy's father then screams for his mother to wait, after which he claims that the boy made a mistake. But he asks her to take into account all his achievements and have mercy. The woman then only smiles and then turns to Calypso Aquasiadel. And he asks the girl what she thinks about this. However, the young lady only grins maliciously after that, and then she claims that she has no objections to her punishment. Well, she claims that Ruga and Ruba suffered the most in this incident, so she would like to hear the opinion of the head of the Beluga family. The woman then states that she will follow her decision, as will Lady Calypso, and the head of the family then replies that this is good. And since the jury has no objections, she will carry out the punishment. The main character then realizes that in the Orca society, graduating from the mid-level academy is very important as proof of one's abilities. Yes, and besides, the guy won't be able to establish relationships while under house arrest, and if he's truly a good guy, he'll somehow attract his grandmother's attention during the detention period and get it over with. But the girl then understands that this guy ended up in his place, not thanks to his abilities, but because he was simply lucky. On the contrary, those whose strength needed to be paid attention to were Sorte, who is the son of the second uncle, and Delis, who is her older brother. So now the girl understands how the lineup of successions has changed. Bain has sunk to the position of the neglected. Therefore, Belus and Sorte will fight for supremacy, although the young lady understands that she does not care who becomes the leader. The woman at this time asserts that she will say one more thing at the end, after which she claims that she now recognizes Calypso Aquaciadel, a member of the main branch of the orca family. The baby then simply smiles, realizing she succeeded, and everyone in the audience begins clapping. And the little girl understands that her ultimate goal of attending the family gathering was achieved thanks to her grandmother's introduction, and the little girl did not even expect such a luxurious debut. The young lady's father pats her on the head and tells her she's doing well. After which the little girl simply responds "Dar," and understands that whatever happens, she's doing well. Being the main character is always incredible, and the girl hugs her dad and then claims that they won. The head of the family at this time only watches this and thinks that it is worth just looking at this. The woman understands that if she is introduced as a direct descendant personally by the head of the family, usually the werewolf becomes overwhelmed by the burden of responsibility or becomes frightened. But the girl, on the contrary, enjoys the attention and has a fairly high level of body enhancement, and it was also said that she has an innate talent for physical combat, despite the fact that she cannot even create a drop of water. The woman then understands that the sequence is broken and that she is familiar with such a genius. After which the grandmother turns to Belus and tells him to come closer. The guy then does just that, and then asks if his grandmother called him, and the woman then asks what he thinks about this situation, since before this, the record for the youngest person she recognized belonged to him. The woman recalls how she claimed that she recognized Belus Aquaciadel as a direct descendant of the orcas, and everyone was surprised, because the boy was only 6 years old, and now the woman claims that his younger sister has surpassed his record and received recognition. But even Pierre, who didn't even look at his children, came to her defense. Besides, the woman is now asking if the girl hadn't defeated his rival Bain, and she claims that she will allow the guy to speak out boldly, so let him share his opinion. However, the guy then only claims that the punishment handed down by the grandmother is very fair, since it is impossible to influence the mercy of someone who broke the rules. However, the boy claims that Calypso Aquaciadel is responsible for allowing her classmates to suffer, despite her considerable skills. The woman then wonders what the boy means by thinking his younger sister is Calypso. She is guilty, along with Bain, and now the woman tells the guy that this is true and such an answer was expected from him, but the guy only says that the grandmother is flattering him. At this time, the little girl only understands that she heard everything and that this damn older brother is against her. The girl then seemed to look at him and understand that she was in a disciplinary committee, opened because of Togo. He states that his younger sister was attacked, and that both she and Bean are equally to blame, and the girl then understands that before she leaves this mansion, she will also correct his character. At this time, Atlanta runs up to his younger sister and says that she tried hard, and also congratulates the girl on being recognized by the head of the family. The boy also claims that the meeting is not over yet, but he came because the judge of the atmosphere of the Vantum is as good as finished. The main character then replies that he is right, and when she looks at the Baina family, she thinks how fiercely they stared at her. And the guy's younger sister also looks at her with a look full of contempt, after which she only turns around and the young lady sticks her tongue out at her, and they understand that in any case, it's great, because from now on, let them lock themselves at home and sit there quietly. At this time, the mother of the twins turns to the respected leader, after which he asks if she can say a few words before the meeting ends, and the woman says that she allows it. The white-haired lady then asserts that she intends to exercise her right to choose this servant. After which, the woman declares that from now on, the Beluga clan, of which she is the head, is the one. Lady Calypso Aquaciadel will follow. The young lady then turns to her father and tells him to wait and also to put her down. The woman claims that by putting the choice of the vassal on the line, it cannot be cancelled. Their family will support Lady Calypso Aquaciadel as the next heir, and the main character is then shocked to think if this is really true and what is she talking about. Everyone in the room is also surprised, and the young lady thinks she knows, or this woman is at most 3 years old. But what is more important? This is something that she never thought of, becoming the head of the family.